coming from the great American Southwest, from the very low desert. Good morning, good evening, whatever the case may be to all my listeners around the world. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares from the Sabbath at Midnight, along here with my co-host, Dominic, to bring you another exciting episode, and only possible by the Lord Jesus Christ himself. So with that being said, we have a very, very intense episode, and I recommend this 18 and over. I'm not even joking. So when I talk about these things, it's very serious. This beautiful young lady, she's went through hell. Okay, we're talking everything from satanic ritual abuse, and that's everything from being trafficked to being forced to do some, cannibalistic stuff, witnessing her father doing it, pretty much stuffing bodies with drugs, going across the border, a lot of Santeria, a lot of voodoo. We're talking about demons manifesting and angels manifesting. I don't even know where to go with this, but this is the most craziest, most intense episode I've ever heard about satanic ritual abuse. And honestly, this woman is doing well today and alive, and everything she's been through, she's now happily married with 8 children and residing in Southern California. And that's all that matters. She's now connected with the Lord Jesus Christ himself. And she is here today to share this testimony with you guys. Over 2 hours. And if you guys have any interest in this kind of topic or have been through this, this is the one you want to hear. Okay. I know I had the one with Greg, and Greg has set the standard. And this one is on that same level, but with the female. I'm not saying someone had a better or worse situation, but this one is the one you want to listen to. Give a shout out to Naniece. Give a shout out to her overcoming what she's been through, and listen to the episode. Like I said, always the wolves are yelling. Sound effects. But what this woman went through is hell. No BS. Listen to it. Have a big heart. Put the kids away. Kick your feet up. Hit the head. Grab yourself a coffee. Turn the lights down. And let's get ready for a very exciting episode here on the Sabbath at Midnight. Welcome back, everybody, to the Sabbath at Midnight. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares, here to bring you another informative episode. Have here again, once again, with my co-host, Dominic. Always blessed to be here by the Lord Jesus Christ himself, here to bring you a very exciting testimony. I heard her testimony on another podcast. It just, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and this one really got my attention. It's very intense. I would say it's not for little kids or things like that, but it's very informative when it comes to the spiritual realm, and just how strong the devil can be, and just how strong God can be, and overcome all that demonic stuff. So I don't want to get into too many details. I want her to tell her story however she wants. But right here, Naniece, I believe I say her name. So go ahead, introduce yourself, and just tell people, where you're from, if you have a website or anything, or any kind of social medias you want to plug people in.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Naniece. I live in San Diego, California. I'm 36 years old. I have 8 beautiful children. Their ages 20 all the way down to 2. I have a pretty stable life now, but it hasn't always been easy. I've struggled with a lot of addiction, mental health, a lot of traumas and stuff like that. But I'll take you guys back to where it all started. So I'm from California, but I wasn't born here. I was actually born in Mexico. My parents had me in Cuernavaca, Morelos. I've never been there. They brought me here as a baby. So I was undocumented until 2020. Although my first language was English, I didn't learn how to speak Spanish till I was 11. But my first years of life, I didn't have either of my parents. My mother was out, doing her thing with, I hear a lot that my mom was maybe an escort. She was also involved dealing with men, smuggling drugs, whatnot. I remember like when I first opened my eyes, when I became consciously aware, I was 3 years old, and it was the day of my baptism. They baptized me Catholic, as most Hispanics do. I don't remember the ceremony, but I do see in the pictures like my godparents. They were these people that, you know, big old chains. They had money and all this stuff. So at a very young like life, I was introduced to that lifestyle, you know. There was always a lot of money around, like drugs and stuff like that since I was a little kid. But my grandmother tried to keep my brother and I away from that. And I remember like my mom always coming in and out of my grandmother's house, and I would always like try to chase after her, but you know, she would always be leaving. And I just remember my mom always dressed up in all these hoochie clothes and stuff. And I never knew then why she was dressed like that. I just thought she was beautiful and whatever. And I just remember trying to chase her and her always leaving. And I started feeling at a very young age neglected. So by the time I'm 5 years old, my grandmother gives us to my biological father. So it's me and my older brother. He's 1 year older than me. And she gives us to my dad. And the very first domestic violence situation that I was involved in was my both parents fighting because my mom had came to his house trying to take only my brother and also accusing him of some stuff that happened to me because I had cuts between my legs. And so they got into a physical fight. I'm not even 5 years old yet. They're physically fighting. And I remember that's when I started to feel anger and hate because I saw how much they were hitting each other. And she ripped up all his clothes, she scratched up all his face. And I remember my dad pushing us inside the house and telling his main girlfriend, because my dad had many women, he told her to keep us inside, and he goes and grabs his gun and tells us that he's going to kill her. That was the last time I saw my mom. I was almost 5 years old. That was the last time I saw her. So from 5 to 9, I lived with my biological dad. And in those 4 years that I lived with him, we experienced a lot of like bad things. Starting off with my dad, he was also involved in criminal stuff. He practiced Santeria, he practiced witchcraft, he practiced, really horrific things that we were, you know, introduced to him and his mother. They would take us on trips to like Mount Julian or Rosarito. Most of these things would happen in Mexico. And they my dad was involved in trafficking also. So when they would like traffic people, they not only just use their bodies to traffic and smuggle drugs, but they will also use the bodies to traffic organs and use those bodies to sacrifice to summon demons. And this is stuff that my brother and I were exposed to at a very young age. Of course, we never understood what was happening. We're just sitting there and, learning all these things. And, I remember like the symbols and stuff like that, and us being told to do certain things. And I always felt in my heart that it was wrong. But we didn't really have a choice. My dad pretty much taught us to not fear or feel any emotion. If we showed any emotion or fear, we would get whipped, like bad. So my grandmother was always beating up on me, especially because I was the most sensitive one. Like she said, I'm gonna whip it out of you. I'm gonna whip it out of you. And in one of those times that she was whipping us, because my dad was in and out of jail too, because he would get caught sometimes, or he was going to jail for beating up his girlfriends. A specific event where his mom was watching us. She was whipping us. It was raining that day, and my brother and I go to hide underneath one of the bunk beds, and lightning hits in our backyard and starts a fire. And during that incident, I remember seeing an angel. That was the first time I saw an angel. And I wasn't afraid of it. I was actually very curious. I've always been like that. Like I'm not afraid of the unknown. I'm always like, oh, what is that? Like, who are you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or maybe it's because the fear, I was taught not to fear stuff. So I think I was more scared of my grandmother than I was of what I saw. And it appeared to me, it had many eyes, it had like flame all around it, and it was just getting closer and closer to us. And I heard the fire was spreading, and I just hear a voice tell me like, you need to get out now. But the second time I heard it, that's when we started crawling out, and that's when the firefighters found us and rescued us. um So that was my first experience of seeing, a good, like something good, right? But I was used to seeing mostly bad stuff because of what we were exposed to. Every time we would go to TJ, we would always go to like the houses where they would perform these rituals, and I would always see like, bad demonic spirits, and like I could see it in people's like faces. Like I also like started hearing and seeing things, and I also feel it was because of what we were exposed to. They practiced these rituals on us, and it was like they were doing some witchcraft on us. And I remember feeling dark energy around me all the time, and angry, always angry all the time. And when they would cut, I have a PTSD when it comes to blood. I always wanted to become a surgeon, but it was like I can't be a surgeon because it brings me memories of my past. Um, they would always do these rituals, and then they would make us drink blood, but then they would do this thing where they would cut our hand and we would like bond our blood with each other, with everyone. And then they would tell us, from now on, we're going to be protected spiritually. You have cross blood, tienes la sangre cruzada. That's what they would say. They would say that growing up, that nobody can mess with me in the spiritual world because we were going to always be spiritually protected because of who they summoned or who they prayed to or who they, whatever it is that they did. And I just remember like feeling at that 5, 6 years old, feeling a sensation of power. But again, it was like not something that I felt deep inside that I wanted. It was like, this feels good, but not in a good way. Um, so as I'm getting older, I'm able to see stuff and hear stuff. And I tried telling my dad, and he was just like in his own world, he was always my dad was like the head of security at the airport. So he got away with a lot of stuff, but then he eventually went to prison. Um, he was really more into making money. He was a single father, so he was always more into making money. I think for me, also the traumatic things that something that I can never forget is like I said, he would traffic bodies, right? And I remember they would get kids that were similar in age to my brother and I, and that looked just like my brother and I. And they knew exactly how to preserve bodies to make it look like they were still alive. And they would take the organs out, cleanse them, stuff their bodies with drugs. And we're crossing the border. My brother and I are sitting next to two corpses. And then when we get closer to the border, he would tell us, okay, you guys are going to cross walking, and I'm going to cross in the car. And I remember crossing right here in San Isidro. We would always meet him at the McDonald's, and we would always have to get back in the car with those corpses, and he got away with it because back then, like the border was not as it is now. And again, we were undocumented, so I don't even know how we crossed. I just know that he had lied about who we were, like our identity and stuff. So and then he would have us cross with his main girlfriend, who was a white lady, so they didn't really question her.
Yeah.
So he did this for many years, and it was just something that now I have not necessarily a fear, but I get weird around dead bodies because it's like, smells and stuff like that creep me out. Um,
I have one.
but and I also remember my grandfather telling us a story that when we were about 4 or 5 years old, that we were actually kidnapped and we were held at ransom, and he had to pay. And I remember like not exactly who's the one that took this, but I remember sitting in the back of a brown car with my brother, and there was cops and everything around, and there was an exchange of money. And I was like, well, who kidnapped us, And then so I always make a joke, maybe they brought me back to the wrong family, because I see pictures from when I was little, from before that incident happened, and then after, it looked like two different girls. So I'm like, what if I'm not really related to you guys, Or maybe that's just how I hope it to be because of everything that I went through. I try to justify it by that. But so yeah, my dad did all this criminal stuff. I told him I started having premonitions too, and he wouldn't believe me until one day my premonition was for real, and he experienced it. One of the trips we took with him while he was transporting his stuff, I remember we were in the car, and I had like this vision where the cars are crashing, the tires are screeching, and people are screaming, and I get cold chills and everything, and I tell my dad he needed to pull over because the voice is like it's gonna happen. And so I anxiously told him, like, we need to pull over right now. My dad got annoyed, pulls over, comes around, starts shaking me, and he's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, like, I don't know what to tell you. And boom, the cars behind us get into an accident. And I was like, I'm trying to tell you, you know? And so I think my dad, what he thought about it, because he spoke about it with my grandmother, um, they would say that they maybe summoned some kind of evil spirit that could sense when things would happen. So then he started using that to his advantage, where he would have his meetups where he would be, you know, selling his stuff, and I would be able to discern who was good and who wasn't. Like I could tell that energy, like I pick up on energies, you know. So, and I feel like for me that was like a dangerous thing to do, because I'm a little girl and you're using me to fight your battles, you know. um so that was that, you know, of at that age. But also, like, the good thing about my gifts in school, you know, I had the ability to learn things differently. And while I'm in kindergarten, I get tested a bunch of tests, and that's when they determined that I was a gate student, which is gifted and talented. And so my escape was school. I loved school. I loved learning. And also, so this happened in kindergarten, and then transitioning from kindergarten to first grade, that's when my first biggest trauma hit me. My father was doing an overnight, and he left us with one of his neighbors, so she can watch us while he worked overnight. And her son, who was 17 years old, ends up raping me. I'm 6 years old, and I get raped by the 17-year-old African American male. And my older brother tried to help me, and he beats up my brother, and he threatened us that if we said anything, that he would do it again, that he would rape me again and hurt my brother. So that was my very first traumatic experience, which kind of sucked because it was a secret that I kept. The only person that knew about it was my brother. And I never told my brother about it, but I know that I became a very, like, sad person. That's when I started to feel like a void in my heart. Like, why did this happen to me? Um, why did this guy hurt me? Why did my brother get beat up? And I started feeling a lot of guilt because of how bad he beat up my brother. Um, so after that happened, you know, my dad continues to live that lifestyle. He tried to, like, leave that, you know, ritual stuff lifestyle, and he tried to become like a Christian at one point, but that didn't really work. It didn't really last. My dad was religiously confused, because even from being Christian, he tried to become a Muslim, and he actually had us, like, you know, trying to read the Quran and learn the language and everything. And then he would blame his religion on his to justify his behavior. When he would do stuff, he'd be like, Allah told me to do it. Allah said it was okay in the name of Allah. That's what he would always say. And I'm like, that does, even me being little, I always like knew, like, I don't think God would approve of evil stuff to happen, you know? Um, I remember there was a Bible though in the house, and my dad, when he would start drinking, I remember being little and barely learning how to read. I saw a Bible, and a voice told me to go, you know, read it. So I pick it up, and I would go hide behind the couch, because I knew my dad's drinking would lead to something else. So I would just sit there and I would try to read whatever this book was, and the voice would be like, "This book's gonna save you. Just whatever you do, just always keep reading this." And I'm like little, so I don't even know what it says. I didn't know what it meant. And like I said, with my dad and his drinking, one of the things that he liked to do was to have my brother and I fight each other for entertainment, and he would have other people watch us. So we would go for it. We would go at it for hours, my brother and I, just boxing each other. And he would always tell us the person who cries first, or the person that loses first, will get beat by him. So my brother and I would go at it. We would get angry, like, just go down. No, you back down. Like, no, you, like, I'm surprised that my brother and I don't have hate towards each other because of how much we would fight. I think that actually brought us closer, and, you know, whatever. But yeah, my dad would do that out of entertainment, is to have us, you know, fight each other. There was another incident too when we went to Rosarito, to the house where they would do these sacrifices. And I don't know what my dad went there for, but he was talking to one of his aunts, and he had us wait in the kitchen. And we're sitting there on this table, my brother and I, facing the wall, and there's this puppet that's hanging from the wall, and it's a clown puppet. And this is where my fear for puppets and clowns began, because as we're sitting there looking at the wall and this puppet like moves his head to the side and it smiles at us. And my brother and I just like back up a little bit. And then it starts crawling on the wall. And I was like, oh no, like my brother and I got up, we ran to my dad and to his aunt, and we're like, that thing's moving. We're looking around to see if maybe another adult was trying to mess with us. There was nobody there but my brother and I. They're both laughing. And the lady was like, oh yeah, that's probably the spirit of this person we just killed. And I'm like, I don't want
Wow.
to be here no more. I want to leave. I feel like something negative here. Like my dad like laughed it off, but I hate going to Rosarito. I feel like in Mexico, that's where the worst spirits are at. Um, so I endured a lot of physical abuse from my dad, especially when he was drinking. I endured physical abuse from his mother because she was trying to teach us discipline, and she was just trying to make us become these people that they were, which I don't understand what it is that they were. But eventually she passes away. I literally told my husband the story because I was like, I feel kind of like guilty because I'm like, what if it was my fault she died? My brother and I were watching her, and her health was declining. She was a diabetic, and the day that she passed, she had fainted, and I guess her sugar went down, but we didn't know. We were 6 and 7 years old, and we didn't go get help as quickly as we should have, and she went into a coma. So sometimes I feel like maybe we killed her because we didn't go get help quickly, and I was like, maybe a part of me didn't want her to live because of how badly she treated us. So that's something that like sticks in my head. And so after that happened, she was on a coma for about a week before they decided to let her pass away. And then things got worse. My dad had left for a whole month to his country to go bury her, and he left us with his girlfriend who did horrible things to us. One of the things that always stands out to me, and I share this with people like my brother because him and I joke about it, um, is there was a time where she actually made me drink hot sauce and dish soap for
What?
a form of punishment because she said
Oh,
I said a
man.
bad word, but I don't know what bad word she said I said. And she was like, repeat what you said. And I was like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm not going to repeat something you want me to say. So she said I was always defiant. I just feel like I advocated for myself always all the time, and she didn't like that. So she made me like drink dish soap, like liquid, and hot sauce. And I remember it was tapatio too.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that night, when I fell asleep, I was throwing up. I was throwing up all night, and I threw up on her favorite blanket. So the
Yeah.
next day, when she saw that I threw up, she was just smacking me over and over again. And she was like, I'm going to keep hitting you until you stop throwing yourself because you're being dramatic. And I was like, she just kept doing, she hit me at least 20 times. And so that's one of the things that I can never forget. So then my
I have a
dad comes back
question.
from his trip.
I have a question really quick, just before we
Yeah.
go further. Um, first question is, I heard on the other one you said that there was a part where I believe your father, you caught him or you saw him eating children or body parts. And then the second question I have is, with all these things you're telling me about your dad, I mean, he had to have been like, born in a satanic type of occult, right? For him to be all into this stuff as an adult. Those are my
Yeah.
two questions for you.
So yeah, from what I've heard, because I never met his biological dad, I heard his biological father is African American. So I'm 60% African American and the rest is Spaniard. His biological dad is African American. I guess he was murdered the day I was born and on his way to the hospital. And he also did voodoo.
I was gonna say Africa, voodoo. Yeah, I was about
So
to say
that's
something.
him and his dad and his mom did stuff like that. And then my dad was born into that. And then there's us. And yes, he did. So part of the satanic rituals that they would do is, they would harvest the bodies for the drug trafficking. But yeah, they would eat the organs. They would make us eat raw organs and to make us healthy. Like we never went to the doctor, but we would always eat, you know, when I told my husband about this and the Epstein file started coming out, I was like, that's nothing new. I'm
Isn't
like,
there
I
isn't there
lived it.
truth to it though? I mean, it's you're not supposed to eat human body parts, but isn't there like scientific proof to it that it does keep you younger, it does keep you more healthier? You know what I mean? That's literally what the Epstein files say. They drink the adrenochrome because it's like
Hmm.
a drug that makes you smarter, more energetic, more euphoric, and makes you look younger. There has to be truth to that, right? Otherwise, why would they be drinking it?
Yeah. So I think for me, my dad would tell me because of my blood type and because when I was born, I almost died at 2 months. I had pneumonia or something like that. They took me to a curandero and that's how they healed me. But he always said that he wanted to make sure that we lived longer, and this was his excuse for us doing these things, like yeah. So I mean, I don't understand it. Like I said, it was something that we kind of were taught, but I never really like got into it. Like like I don't do that stuff anymore. Like I never liked doing it. Like that's something, the smell of blood. When I see like somebody hurt, I walk away because I'm like, it just brings up trauma. And I wanted to be a surgeon. So I think that's where my fascination of wanting to be a surgeon came from, because I was taught as a very little age how to use a scalpel. So yeah, my dad,
Um,
he did, and he went to prison for this stuff. So where
yeah,
was I at?
yeah, you're talking about how your stepmom was beating you, shoot you like 20 times.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. So she hits me, right? And then after my dad comes back from that trip, she tells my dad that I was misbehaving, that I was being very defiant, that this and that. And so my dad is back from burying his mom, so he's probably dealing with grief. So my dad starts to hit me out of anger. So he's hitting me with rage. He hits me so bad to the point that he hits me in the face with the belt. So now I have like this welt on my face. And when he did that, that's when he stopped and he started crying. And he's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you." And I looked at him like, "You really hit my face? Like, I'm used to you hitting me, but like my face." And then so then he grabs me and he starts like, rocking me back and forth, and he starts singing that Mexican song that goes sana sana colita de rana. I hate that song, because every time it always reminds me that he would, try to make my pain go away. Like, you can't just sing a song and it's gonna go away. Like, that hurt. And so then I told him, I was like, "Get off me, like she's lying." And then I told him what she did to me, how she made me eat the soap and how she made me eat the hot sauce. And he's like, "She did what?" And after that, he like beat her up so bad. I remember it was raining that day and they got into a fight, and she pushed him down the stairs. And like he was drinking too. So it was like, I remember running after him, even after he hit me in the face, and he's on the bottom of the stairs outside the apartments, and it's raining, and I was like, "Dad, you need to get up. You need to get up." And she ended up calling the cops on him, and she ended up bailing him out after that. But he continued to still be with her. Like, they didn't live together anymore, but that was still his main girlfriend. But he had a lot of other women around. He had a lot of prostitutes around. Um, and then I later on found out that the women he was seeing, that they had children too, that he also trafficked, and he had also like sexually assaulted a couple boys that belonged to some of the women he was dating.
Oh wow.
Um, so yeah, so after that incident happened, my dad's drinking got worse, and I believe at this point, I think he's doing heroin. Back when I was little, I thought maybe it's just diabetes. He was, you know, it's insulin. But then as I grew up as an adult because I became an IV user myself, and I was like, wait, this is what was around my house. This is what my dad was a heroin addict, but I didn't know this back then. So at this point, my dad's already drinking. I'm 1,000% sure he's doing heroin. And he starts to, at this point, I'm 8 years old, he starts to groom me. And he starts doing this thing where he starts playing a game with me and saying I'm his girlfriend. He starts to dress me in these dresses, and he grooms me in a way that he makes me feel or think that what is happening is something that I'm enjoying, right? He tries to normalize what he's doing, but then I knew it wasn't right when he would get a gun and put it to my head and make me do stuff. Um, like there's certain things that I had to work through in therapy to enjoy as an adult, only because it was traumatizing for me as a kid, like being 8 years old and having a grown ass man put a gun to your head and tell you, "If you don't put this in your mouth right now, I'm going to shoot you in the head. And if I shoot you in the head, it's going to be your fault. Your brother wakes up and sees you dead." What am I supposed to do? I can't show fear. I can't show any emotion. So, this went on for about a year, like, and I hated it because I'm like, he has all these women that he brings around and he's doing this to me. Like I'm his daughter. And, so not only is he now he's sexually assaulting me, but he's also beating us up even worse. Like the beatings are getting worse and worse and worse. And then after my 9th birthday, his last beating is what ends up getting us taken away from him. And in that last beating that he gave us, that's when I saw my first demon. I saw a demon that looked like the demon from Insidious, and it was
Which one?
communicating with me telepathically, and it was telling me to walk across the freeway because I had the ability to like teleport from this reality to another one. Like I could tap into the spiritual world whenever. And in this
Magically?
moment when we're getting beat, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, when we're getting beat, like this demon appears to me, and we're all of a sudden in the highway, and he's like telling me this is what you got to do to end all this pain. And I was like, in that moment, I was thinking about it because I had a lot of anger inside of me because my dad had just hit us for no reason. And he was telling me to walk across the highway, and I wanted to, but then my brother holding my hand is what brought me to reality. And I was like, we no, this is not right. So when I come to, we keep getting beat, and then my dad, like always, apologizes to us. And then the next day we go to school, and I'm waiting for my brother to pick me up after school. He doesn't show up, so I walk to his school, and I see a lot of cops around, and he's not in his classroom. So I walk to the office, and I see the nurse open the door, and she's crying, and she grabs me, and then they put us in the back of a police car. They end up taking us to Polinsky, which is an orphanage out here in California, in San Diego. And they took off all of our clothes, and they started taking pictures head to toe. And I'm over here feeling violated because I got these strangers, like bunch of people there just taking pictures of us. We had bruises from head to toe, like, and there was not any spot in our body that did not have bruises. Like when my dad would beat us, it wasn't to discipline us, he would hit us with rage. And it never made sense to me why. Like, well, obviously he was possessed by some kind of demon for him to do such horrible things, to other kids and then to his own children. Um, so we're at Polinsky for a while, and that's when I find out that my mom is alive. And they asked if we wanted to get to know her. And so my mom starts coming to visit us at that place. My dad hasn't been arrested yet. He's going to court and whatnot, but they don't know about the sexual assault on me yet until I'm almost 11 years old, because of a physical that they did. But while we're at Polinsky, my mom starts coming to visit us. And when she started to visit us, I didn't feel like she was there to see me. She was always excited to see my brother. But when she saw me, she just kind of looked at me like, okay, hey, what's up? Like. So when we were finally released from that location, we were able to go with one of my aunts, which is her sister. And I felt good with my aunt, we did everything with her. I was in school. She took us to like Padre games, Raider games, took us to amusement parks. Like I felt like a child. I felt like a kid because when I was with my dad, that was taken from me. And she gave me that childhood. And it was only a couple months because then my brother wanted to go live with my mom, and I didn't want to separate from my brother. So ultimately I left with my brother to my mom's. And while I'm at my mom's house, they put us into therapy. They do play therapy. They send us to do a physical, and that's when they found out that I was sexually assaulted. And I remember they closed down the whole clinic. They closed down the whole clinic. It's a family health centers over here in Logan. They closed it down, all of it. They got rid of everybody. They called investigators and everything, and they immediately transferred me to a hospital. And while I'm there, they start doing medical procedures on me. They start doing all these painful tests. And I remember reaching out for my hand to my mom with my hand so she can hold my hand for comfort. She just gave me a look and walked away. And I was like, in that moment, I knew I could never count on her. Like, you just came into my life. You haven't been in my life all this time. And now that I need you, like, you walk away from me. Like, those
That's
tests were painful. Like, they didn't even sedate you or nothing. Like, and these tests were necessary to convict my father. So I had to go through it. Um, so then that happens, and they put us into therapy, and they ended up diagnosing me with PTSD, severe depression, anxiety. Um, what was the other one? I forgot what the other one's called, but they diagnosed me with a few things, and the therapy was working and whatever for a while, but then things started happening under her household too. Now I have her younger brother, who's my uncle, and he's only a couple years older than me. He starts to molest me. And
shit.
I felt like shame. I felt guilt. I felt like it was my fault. So I was scared to say anything. You know, I'm already still feeling the shame of what my dad did to me, and now it's happening again. Like, I always felt like there was something wrong with me, like, especially because my body was already developing. So I'd always cover myself. And then because my mom would always tell me, oh, pull your pants up, don't wear shorts, don't do this because you're being provocative. So when things would happen to me, I would always ask, was it my fault? Did I provoke this from happening? But I knew it wasn't my fault. I was a kid, you know what I mean? Like, he should have known better. He was older than me. And then, like, especially when he had his first kid, he was 13, 14 when he had his first kid. And that day that they brought his kid home, he did it again. And I even told him, like, are you dumb? You're a dad now and you're still doing this stuff to me. Like, what is wrong with you? And then I told him, at some point, you know, I'm already getting my period. Don't you ever think I could get pregnant one day? Like, he just wouldn't stop. So he sexually assaulted me from the age 11 to age 14. So even at my mom's house, all this stuff is happening. My mom and I were not really getting along. She's always fighting with her baby daddy. He's always beating her up, and she has a lot of stuff going on. We're having a hard time communicating because she doesn't speak English. I'm barely learning how to speak Spanish, and I'm dealing with my own trauma that she's not really willing to help support me with. And we're CPS involved because of how they removed me from, like, my dad. They said that we were going to be wards of the state until we were 18. That's what they told my brother and I. And at this point, we're still undocumented. And so while I'm under my mom's care, my brother ends up getting into a gang, and I'm always hanging out with my brother. However, my mom was only blaming me that I'm in a gang, that she don't want gangsters in her house. And I was like, I'm not in a gang though. Like, that's not just because I hang out with them. I'm like, what about your son? She's like, well, I don't want gangsters in my house or whatever. So she kicks me out. I'm 12 years old. She kicks me out. And I remember that day that she kicked me out, I end up going to the park and I get jumped, you know. Here I could have ended somebody's life that night. I was told to, you know, like I said, I wasn't in a gang, but I would kick it with people, and they were like trying to make me prove myself, you know. But at the end of the day, I was like, I never wanted to be part of a gang, and I heard that voice tell me, this is not you. This is not who you are. So I was like, I'm not gonna take this girl out. And I ended up getting jumped by 4 girls who started taking my clothes off. And their girls were older than me. I'm 12. These girls are 16 and 17. And in that same day, my friend from middle school was like, "Oh, come on, let's go to my house. I'll help you get cleaned up." I go with his mom. She helps me get cleaned up, gives me clean clothes. And as I'm heading out to leave, this older man comes out and he sees that we were about to start smoking weed. And he's like, "Oh, mija, I have something that'll make you feel better. You look like pretty messed up. You look like you need something to take the pain away." And at this point, I was like, okay, well, I'm homeless. I don't know what to do. I've smoked weed before, so it was like, well, let's see what he has that's better. And this man was 30 years old. So he gave me meth. He gave me meth for the first time. And this guy had a meth lab in one side of the apartments, and he had his where he had me locked in, and the other side of the apartments where he had cameras and everything. And so he kept me inside of that place for a couple months, and he trafficked me. He would get me high, and he would you know, have certain people do stuff to me, including his little brother that was my friend from middle school. Like, he did not want to do stuff to me, and he was crying, and his brother beat him up, and he was like, "You're gonna do this. If not, you're a little B," and da da da. And I just remember telling him, you know what, it's fine. I'm not gonna feel it anyways. And so I remember getting high, and then his brother did what he did to me. Um, I remember towards the end of that situation, I know that that guy was gonna get ready to kill me because the guy that my friend that had brought me around that area in the first place, he came and he had a flyer and he's like, they're looking for her. My mom had actually posted missing signs of me around the area. And so this guy that day, he's like, I'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Just keep an eye on her. And he leaves, and he had the door locked up in these chains, like these metal chains like this. So like the door would barely open. And I remember I was like exhausted. I was like malnourished. And I remember like everything was spinning. And I heard a voice tell me, this is it. This is your moment. You got to leave and you got to run right now. So I remember like squeezing, like that's how skinny I was. Like I had lost so much weight. When you do meth, you lose a lot of weight. And I remember because the bra that I was wearing was flat now. Like I had no boobs anymore. And I was able to get out of that door, and I ran. I couldn't even see. It was so bright. And I ran, and I heard voices saying, "Oh my God, is that her? It's her, it's her." And then I collapsed. And then when I woke up, I was at the hospital, and there was cops there. And my mom was like, "Oh, arrest her, arrest her." Like, my mom didn't even care how horrible I looked. She just wanted me to get arrested. The only reason why the cops didn't take me to juvie was because they told her she had to pay. And so she was pretty upset. So she sent me to my grandparents for the summer. And she said, just keep her until I decide what I'm going to do with her. And so I'm with my grandparents for the summer, which I didn't mind because my grandparents loved me, you know, like they were the ones that helped raise and take care of me without a problem. But they always gave me back to my mom because they would always say, "You're not our responsibility, you're her responsibility," you know. And that's fine, you know. So when I go back to my mom's, everything had been calm, but then her sister comes from Mexico to come to live here in California, and she brings her son with her. Her son is a couple years older than me, and now her son starts molesting me too. So now I'm dealing with the uncle, now I'm dealing with the cousin. And one of those times when my mom actually walks in and sees him groping my chest, I'm trying to fight him off me, and she's like, "No andes de llevada," and she pinches me in the arm. And I was like, "You clearly are not, are you blind? Like, do you not see me getting him off me? Like, no, it's your fault because you're asking for it. How am I asking for it if I'm asking him to get off me? Like, you should be protecting me." So she blamed me. So I was like, that's how I knew that I could never tell her what was happening to me, because I felt like she was gonna blame it on me, you know? So that cousin starts, you know, only touching me at the time. He didn't actually physically assault me until I was 15, and his was very horrible. Um, when I'm 15 years old, I had a situation with my mom where I got tired of her beating me all the time. I ran away and I went to go live with an uncle who was willing to adopt me until an incident where I ran away from his home. The reason why I ran away from his home was because that cousin, he came over to my uncle's house because my uncle was a DJ. So my brother and my younger uncle and my cousin would always go help him. And that specific weekend, my cousin came over to um, my uncle's house while I was living there, and he sexually assaulted me in the most horrible way. And I remember that he stopped himself when he saw me crying, and I saw that he went outside and was praying. He was praying to the Virgin Mary because he's a Catholic. And I remember, like, that's how I know that I was like some type of different breed or something, because how can I go comfort him after what he did to me? I was over there comforting him as he was crying and praying to the Virgin Mary to forgive him for what he just did. And I'm over there in pain, but I'm over there like, "Hey, it's okay. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine." So I was like, in my head, I was like, "What is wrong with me? Like, I should have anger. I should have rage." You know what I mean? Like, he hurt me in the worst way possible. And instead, I'm here comforting this person. Like, you know, so that day after that happened, I ran over from my uncle's house, and he thought, my mom told him, she's like, "See, I told you she's from the streets. You were trying to help her for no reason." I never told my uncle why I left because I was too ashamed to tell him the truth. And I feel like I lost that opportunity of living a normal life with him because I couldn't tell him what had happened. So I ended up going back with my mom. And while I'm at my mom's house, the abuse continues to happen. And at this point, she leaves her baby daddy, but she starts partying around. She would take us to strangers' houses while she would go clubbing. So it's me and my little brother and my little sister. My sister's 5 years younger than me. My brother's 7 years younger than me. We would go to strangers' houses so she can go clubbing. And on top of that, she's not even aware of what's happening, right? So she leaves us there, and there's a bunch of other girls that leave their kids there. I remember, like, I would go use the restroom, and there would be adults that were supposed to be watching us smoking meth in the bathroom. I already knew what smoking meth was, so I started picking up the pipe and smoking meth to stay awake, to keep an eye on my brother and sister, because we're in a house full of strangers doing drugs, you know? My mom wasn't even aware. Like, I'm over here doing drugs with the people you leave us to take care of us, you know? And so this is all happening at my mom's, and then eventually, she started doing this thing where she would lock me out of the house while I'm in high school. And she would tell my brother and sister to lock me out, and I would have to, you know, wait until she came home, sometimes 2, 3 in the morning, so she can let me in after she beat my ass, like, because I came home late. Like, I get off school at 3:08. You want me to be at home by 3:15, but I live up the hill. I have to get out of my class. It's a high school. There's a lot of kids everywhere. I have to go to my locker. She didn't give me no chances to make it home on time. Like, she would lock me out. So eventually one weekend, my friend was like, it's cold. Why don't you just come stay with us, stay the weekend, and then we'll go to your house with my mom to talk to your mom about what's happening. And I was like, okay, because I started opening up to some friends about what was happening, because I noticed that I was wearing the same clothes sometimes, or that I was always hungry. And so that weekend passes, and we go to my mom's house, and it's empty. The apartment's empty. Everything's gone. And so I go knock on the neighbor's door, and I saw that my stuff was there, and I was like, can I get my clothes and my shoes, please? And they're like, no, if you don't go, we're going to call the cops. Your mom said you would come start problem. She left. She moved. So I tried calling her landline, and she disconnected it. And I was like, how am I supposed to get a hold of them? But back in the day, when you called the landline, sometimes it would give you the new number. So I called the new number, and my older brother answers the phone. And I was like, hey, where are you guys at? Like, I went home and you guys are gone. He's like, he's like, shoot, I can't talk to you. Don't call this number again. You're not supposed to know where we stay at. And I was like, where am I supposed to live? Where am I supposed to go? I'm 15 years old. I don't have papers. Like, what do I do? And he's like, I'm sorry. And he hung up on me. So now I'm 15, homeless, undocumented. I'm sleeping at the parks. I'm sleeping at the school playgrounds. I'm sleeping behind the industrial buildings with a cardboard, like stuff you see in movies. Like, I was ashamed to talk about this stuff sometimes, but now it's like I have to live my truth, because I went through this stuff and I overcame it, you know? And eventually, when I was doing all of this stuff, my oldest daughter's biological father, he would come stay with me on the streets sometimes. And, you know, he didn't have to do that, but he would stay with me. And eventually, like, he started sneaking me into his house, and I ended up moving in with him. His grandmother was like, I'm gonna help you. And I ended up getting pregnant. So I'm 15 and pregnant now. And while I'm here living with him and his grandma, that's when I started experiencing more like spiritual stuff. I remember this incident when we're walking from our friend's house back to his house. We had to walk over this hill that had like tall grass, but the grass was like up to our knees. And I'm like 5, 6 months pregnant. I had a pretty big belly. It was four of us. We were walking over the hill, and we saw something really quick run. They ran away, and then they left me there because I'm pregnant, and I tried catching up to them. But then I see the thing run again, and it stops, and it's staring at me. It was a duende. I don't know if you guys ever seen those.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. What is that? I heard that a Gwende. Isn't that
Yeah,
like a
so it's like a
little like
gnome. It's like a
a gnome?
little
Yeah.
like a being. Yeah.
What did it look like? What did it look like?
Trippy.
So like the feet are kind of like this, and the hands
Uh-huh.
are too, and it runs like sideways, but it runs fast.
Oh,
And
I
they're
seen a
like
video like that.
probably like this big, and they're like kind of chunky.
You said it ran sideways, right?
Yeah, and they
You know
run
what's crazy?
fast. So
Do you remember that video? This came out like in Dom, you know this too. You're the one that sent it to me. It was like in 2005, a long time ago, and someone recorded a gnome in like Colombia. It was one of those. Remember, you know what I'm talking about, right? But anyways, if you look it up, this is before CGI. I mean, this is not CGI, but this is before like AI. The video's obviously not AI, and it looks the thing that you said, it ran like sideways like that too. That's like wild that you the same description. But anyways, that's crazy.
yeah, so we see this thing, and my first thought that came to my head, because I'm pregnant and my stomach started to hurt. I started getting cramps. And so I was like, oh, is this like thing trying to come after my baby? Because every time I had like negative spiritual encounters, I always immediately thought it was coming after my daughter.
They say they
And then
kidnap kids, those things.
yeah, and then I also heard like Mexicans have a thing that they say that duendes come after your kid, like they do mischievous things to your children.
They replace it
Um,
with
so, and I believe it too, because after she was born, we had an incident where she was on a swing, and she was just like sleeping, and these things run quick. So if you see them, you see them. If you don't, you don't. But we knew that she was being messed with by one of those. There was a incident where we saw something like grab at her face, but we couldn't see what it was, and she started crying, and she stopped breathing. Um, and I was in the room, her dad was in the room, and we both freaked out because we both know we saw something grab at her face, and she started crying, stops breathing. I grab her, I tried doing CPR on her, starts getting purple. I tell him to call an ambulance. He calls his grandmother while he's calling the 911. His grandmother grabs her and pulls her upside down, starts hitting her in the feet, starts spanking her, trying to get her to breathe. And finally, after she spanked her like really hard, she started breathing again. When we took her to the hospital, they couldn't figure out why she stopped breathing. And she had this happen multiple times. And every single time she had those breath holding spells, because that's what they called it. We saw something grabbing at her face, you know, and I was like, there's something like negative spiritual, like trying to grab at our daughter. And he was like, oh, we got to baptize her. Da, da, da. I was like, I'm not going to baptize my daughter a Catholic like I was. I want to give her the opportunity to pick what religion she wants, you know, only because of how I grew up. But I did say we do have to pray over her. And his grandmother, she did witchcraft too, but not the way my dad did it. She did some different type of witchcraft. So she started doing this thing where she would like get some of my daughter's hair, and then she would be like, don't worry, I'm gonna make sure she gets protected, nothing's gonna happen to her. And sure enough, the breath holding spell stopped, but it continued for like months, you know. And it was scary because we couldn't see in the naked eye what was trying to get a hold of her, you know. But he did tell me too that while I was pregnant, I was having a dream and I went into sleep paralysis, but in real time, he was trying to wake me up. He said he saw like a little creature on my chest. I think it was like a little duende too, because the way he described it to me, that's what it looked like, you know, or maybe not, because he said it had horns in his head and had red eyes, but it was a little creature on my chest. And while this is happening, I'm having sleep paralysis. I'm dreaming that the Grim Reaper is chasing me. It's snowing. It trips me. I'm on my stomach and it's trying to grab my soul. And at the same time, he said that he saw something on my chest. So I always felt like there was something trying to come after my daughter, even while she was inside of my womb. And but the grandmother did some weird thing, and that stuff stopped happening to my daughter. But then I started to have like, you know, premonitions and visions and stuff. And one of them that I'm never gonna forget because it's something that traumatic that happened to me at 16 was my daughter's dad. He was starting a new school, and the night before I had a dream where I was told that something bad was gonna happen to him, that I couldn't let him go. So when the morning came, I tried to tell him, please don't go. Like I begged him. I was like, I have a bad feeling something bad's gonna happen. Like, please don't go. And he's like, well, I have to go because I'm on probation. He's gang affiliated. So it wasn't really anything that I could do. So he went to school with this uncle, and I go back to sleep. And while I'm sleeping, I hear a voice telling me, wake up, it's happening right now. And then I hear somebody knocking on the door, and it's his grandma. She's like, wake up, we gotta go. It's so and so and so and so, they got hurt. So then we go to the school, and I remember as we get closer, I'm having a hard time breathing on my left side. And I'm like, something doesn't feel right, something doesn't feel right. And when we pull up, there's news reporters, there's ambulances, there's firefighters, there's police blocking off like the whole area. And when I get off, I see his uncle walking around, and his guts and his intestines are hanging out. He was stabbed 2 times in his stomach. And I was like, how is he walking like that? And when I saw that, I had a lot of PTSD happening from my childhood. And then I see blood, and then I'm about to faint, and one of his friends catches me. And when he stands me up, gives me water. I come to, I'm seeing a bunch of blood everywhere, and I see my daughter's dad, and they're doing CPR on him, and he's bleeding from head to toe. And they told me that he got stabbed 4 times, and his lung was punctured. The left side of his lung was punctured, and that's why and he had lost a lot of blood. So they took him to the hospital. He was on life support, and he obviously made it, but it was something hard for me to experience, because I remember that same day I asked my mom to watch my daughter. I told her, I need you to watch my daughter because her dad's in the hospital. And she's like, well, I don't care what happens to him. I hope he dies. If you don't come pick your daughter up by 8 p.m., I'm going to call CPS and say you abandoned your daughter. And I was like, how can you say that? I'm like, I'm not you, first of all. This is an emergency. Her dad is about to die. Like, do you understand that? And she's like, I don't care. Do you understand what I just said? If you don't get here by 8, I'm going to tell CPS you abandoned your daughter. And I was pretty heartbroken about it because I wanted to be for him, but I also didn't want my daughter to get removed from me or whatever. So they stabilized him, and I ended up getting my daughter from my mom. And I just was angry at her because it was like, you know, I'm still undocumented at this point. She's not helping me. She had taken me in to live with her at some point when I was pregnant, but I ended up leaving because she had a boyfriend that was trying to hit on me. And when I tried telling her, she was just saying that it was me, that I just want her boyfriends. So I was like, I'd rather be homeless than to be here. And then she put hands on me too while I was pregnant. So I'm like, I'm not going to continue to put myself through this. So I ended up going back with my daughter's dad. And so anyways, he survives that, but he continues the same lifestyle. And I knew things were going to get worse, but I still stayed because I felt like I had no other option. Um and at some point he starts, becoming physically abusive. He starts hitting me. Sometimes his uncle or his cousin would get in between and like, hey, don't hit her, don't hit her, I'm 16, 17 years old. I'm here getting beat up by the guy I'm with, and I have nowhere else to go. I don't have papers. I don't have a job. Like, I felt like I had no choice, and I felt like I was living my mom's life in my own version because she went through it too. Um, and then there was a point that I ended up getting pregnant again. So now I'm 17 and pregnant with the 2-year-old, and I'm pregnant with twins. And I got scared because I'm like, two babies now, and I have a 2-year-old. Like, what am I going to do? And at this point, he has me living inside of a little trailer. He would leave me there for days. Sometimes we didn't have anything to eat. He would go get drunk, come back home a couple days later, and have his way with me and then leave. And at some point I tried to run away from him, but I couldn't. The only reason why I was able to get away from him was because he got arrested for something he did. And at this point, I was like, this is my time to get away from him. And I remember hitting my mom up and asking her, can you help me? Like, I'm pregnant with 2 kids now. I have my daughter. I want to finish school. I need help. Like, I'm your daughter. And she's like, oh, let me ask my man if it's okay for you to move in. And long story short, he said no. So she could not help me. All she did was pick me up from his aunt's house, drop me off at a homeless shelter in East County, which was full of drug addicts and racist people, and give me $20. That's what she did for me. And not even too long after that, she had my older brother move in with his baby's mom. And I'm like, what? How are you going to help him and them and not us? Like, we're your family too, So I'm here at this shelter, and I remember there I helped save somebody's life. I was really close to the staff there, and the lady that makes the snacks or whatever. I remember that night I felt something very heavy, and I told her, I was like, I think you need to stay here a little bit longer. I think you should stay here a little bit longer. And she was like, why? I'm like, something is telling me that if you leave at the time you normally leave, something's gonna happen. And she's like, oh, you're starting to sound like all the little druggies that live around here. She's like, let me find out you're doing drugs. I'm like, I'm not, but trust me, like, just stay here. And she's like, no, no, I have stuff to do. So I remember she had left, and the commotion happened right outside my window. There was a man who tried to stab her, but I remember I had told the people, like my roommates, and I was like, can you guys go check on her? Because I feel like something's gonna happen. And sure enough, they get to her as the guy was about to stab her. And so like it was a big thing. And they were like, she was like, oh my God, you saved my life. I should listen to you. And I was like, I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. You tried to tell me I was like some kind of drug addict and stuff. And she's like, I'm so sorry. So I was at this shelter for a couple months until I moved in with this other guy who was a lot older than I was. I'm 17. He was like 23, 24, and his mom. She saw that I was pregnant, and she saw that I had my daughter, and she was like, and she knew I was undocumented. So she's like, you can't be staying in a place like this with your kids. Your kids are going to get taken away. You need a home. She's like, why don't you come stay with us and we'll help take care of you, and you and your kids, you're never going to need anything. And she kept her word, because while I was staying with her, we didn't ever need anything. That woman, she took really good care of us. So I stayed with her and her son for a while. He actually gave his last name to my twins. My twins' biological dad and my daughter's biological dad is not really in the picture. although my daughter has tried to have a relationship with him recently, but he's still, not all there. So this guy gave his name to my kids and said that he would man up and take care of them, and he would take care of my daughter. So while I'm there, I experienced a lot of stuff because they're native too. They're also native. So they believe in a lot of spiritual stuff. And so in that house, after I had my twins, there was an incident where I was sleeping and I hear a voice wake me up and tell me that I needed to get the kids out of the room immediately. And I was like waking up, I'm like, what's happening? And I hear it like, get the kids out now. So I wake the guy up and we get the kids out. So we're sitting in the living room and he's like, well, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. I heard a voice tell me to get the kids out and I'm scared. I have a strange feeling. And then so we look at the door to the room and we see two little duendes pop their head out. And he starts screaming and his mom starts running down the hall because she heard the screaming. And she said that when she ran towards the living room, she felt and saw something from the corner of her eye standing in the doorway. And I told her, oh, you've seen it too. So you guys can see it too. It's not just me. And so she calls a priest to come clean, like do a cleansing. And he tells us that there's like a negative energy. And then he looks at me and he's like, there's something about you. There's something very dark around, like about you, that you have something dark around you. And so at this point, I haven't told anybody about what I did as a kid, So I just ignored him, but he did his thing. He burned sage or whatever, and then we started seeing stuff at his cousin's house, who lived across from us, and then her daughter becomes possessed. So they ended up doing an exorcism on her. They wanted me to be there too, just because everybody wants to be part of the stuff, but when I sat in there and they were explaining to us what they were going to do, I'm sitting there and there's two people next to me, but there's some space between us. And I remember I hear somebody playing like with a candy wrapper in my ear. And I'm like looking around, like if anybody else can hear that. And it gets louder. And then after that, like somebody pulls a string to my sweater twice. The second time, everybody saw it. At that point, I felt somebody blow air into my ear. And I got up and I was like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm like, I don't want to be part of this. So I left to my house and they performed the exorcism. Like her daughter, she was only 15 at the time. I remember she turned pale, her eyes were circled. They were dark. She wasn't eating. She was not herself. I remember they showed me pictures and because they would do recordings of this and they took a picture of her and in the reflection of her in the mirror, there was a girl. And my son saw the picture and he's like, oh, mommy, that's my friend. I play with her. She lives in her room. And I was like, no, I don't want you playing in this house anymore. So my son, he's almost 18 now. He tells me he still has the ability to see stuff too. He's not scared of it anymore because he kind of like tuned into his spiritual side a lot different than I did because their family is native. So they taught him a different way. Um, so after they did the exorcism, I'm next door. So we lived in duplexes, right? There's 4 of them. And after they did the exorcism on her house, that same night, we heard something walking up and down the hall. And it sounded like a horse, but on 2 feet. And it sounded louder and louder, like it was angry. And so we're all texting each other back and forth, like, do you hear that? What is that? Who are you guys awake? Like, who did anybody leave for work? So we're all communicating with each other, saying that it's none of us. And then all of a sudden it stops. And then you can hear that it jumps onto our roof and it's pacing back and forth in out where our room is at. And so his cousin said that she opened up her curtain to see what it was. And she said it was like a 9 feet demon with horns and red eyes. And it looked like a half man, half goat.
Oh,
And that
man.
it looked like angry, like it was looking into where we were at and that it looked angry. So when she said that to me, I immediately started to think back. I'm like, I mean, I didn't know I didn't know about God or anything yet. So I'm like, maybe this demon's just trying to come home because it's something that, was awakened when I was little. So I was like, at that point, I was like, maybe it's just trying to come back to me or something. Maybe it's just trying to get my attention. Um, but that's when my ex-mother-in-law was like, you should probably start. They did like this ritual on me, like this prayer for me that the natives do and blowing smoke on me and everything. And they did a cleanse on me. That's what she said she did. And she said, that there's a lot, she said, it's you, there's something bad about you. I was like, well, I'm not a bad person. Like, stop making it seem like I'm a problem. I felt a lot of guilt because I felt like all these people are going through spiritual warfare and it's my fault. And so they did this spiritual thing on me. And They even took me to her mom because her mom was an elder. And she even told me, she's like, and she had actually told me that I was pregnant. And she's like, you're pregnant and it's not good that you're pregnant because that baby's not going to make it. This lady's almost 100 years old. And I was like, that's not true. I can't have any more kids because I was told that I couldn't. But sure enough, I found out that I was pregnant. And I had a dream that I lost it, and at the exact same time that I was going to lose it. And sure enough, when I went to the hospital, they told me what time the baby's heartbeat stopped was the time that I dreamt the baby had passed, you know? And I was like, this lady, she told me about it too. So um, I thought that after they did this cleanse on me that I was going to be saved or whatever, but it was far from that. I started to have like my premonitions again. I didn't know that my ex-mother-in-law had cancer. Like when I met her, she never told me that she was in remission or anything. Because when I met her, she looked healthy. She had really long hair. So I would have never imagined. But then I had a dream and it was bothering me for a week. And then I told her, I was like, I need to tell you something. And I told her about my dream. I told her the exact time, the day, and I described to her the doctor, who he looked like, which was Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid. She started laughing because she's like, yeah, that's my doctor. His name, we call him Mr. Miyagi. And I was like, what? And then she's like, but there's no way you could have known. She's like, you're a witch. I was like, I'm not a witch. And she's like, well, who told you? How did you know I had cancer? I was like, I didn't know. You're telling me right now you had it. And she's like, well, no, I've been trying to find a way to tell everybody that it came back. And so I remember I started crying because I was like, this is the first time that I have a connection with a woman, and she's telling me she has cancer. So I was like, well, how bad is it? Like, what do we got to do? And I became her caregiver. You know, I went with her to all her chemos, to all her appointments, all her checkups. You know, I was there with her through everything, you know, her hair falling off, shaving her head off, every time she had an infection, every time she had surgery. Like, I feel like part of me not having the bond with my twins was because I was caring for their grandmother. Um, so her daughter was the one who would take care of my kids. Her daughter and her son would take care of my kids while I was caring for her, you know. And eventually, you know, she passed, I believe in 2017. Um, but she battled with her cancer for a long time, and you know, it sucked because I had that premonition and I felt like it was my fault. Like I may have manifested it or something. And then I even had premonitions that had nothing to do with anybody of us. I had a premonition. I had a dream that on my twins' first birthday, that right after we cut their cake, the news turns on and something horrible that affected the world happened. And so I tell the guy I'm with, I tell their cousins, they start laughing at me. They're like, oh, just enjoy their birthday. It's their first birthday. It's gonna be special. It's gonna be fine. And so their first birthday, which was June 25th, 2009, right after they cut their cake, sure enough, the news pops up, everything. Michael Jackson just died. And you know, my mother-in-law was like, you killed Michael Jackson. And I was like, I didn't kill him. And she's like, yeah, because you dreamt about it. I was like, I didn't know it was going to be him. I just knew something was going to happen in the world. I thought it was going to be like an earthquake or something. But I guess I, you know, had a premonition of Michael Jackson dying. That was weird.
I
Um,
kind of
but
had a feeling like that too. That's kind of wild. Not as crazy as yours, but that's really funny you bring that up. I have a couple of friends that could back this up, but I used to do like modeling back in the day. You know what I mean? So I used to live in LA. That's a whole nother podcast for another day. All kinds of weird shit in Hollywood, as you know. But I was doing like this Telemundo type of reality series, and I never made the part, but I auditioned for it, and I was there for like 2 days. And then I remember I was like, man, I was like, I don't know why. Like, I feel like a celebrity's gonna die today. Like someone's gonna die today. Someone like very big. And then not even like an hour later, I look at my Facebook or MySpace, where it was at the time, and Michael Jackson died. And I told everybody, nobody believed me. Like, no, he didn't die. I was like, go on your damn phone and Google it. And they all like, oh, you were talking earlier about blah blah blah, because they all remember me talking about it. But yeah, anyways, that was as far as it went. But that's weird though. Really
so
weird.
a lot of us knew
Yeah,
it was going to happen.
yeah, it's wild. But yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I would have dreams like that, like things that were not even significant to me. Um, and I also predicted when their grandmother was gonna die. But of course, I didn't know it was gonna be her. I just remember that day And that's how it usually happens. When it's something bad, I start to feel anxiety and pain inside of my bones, like in my bone marrow. And I just get very anxious, and I'm like, something bad's gonna happen, something bad's gonna happen. And I remember that day they were trying to calm me down, and his mom was like, don't start. She's like, please don't start. We just had Thanksgiving. It's a good time for us, whatever. Please don't start. And I was like, you don't get it. Like this, I can't shake
Yeah.
this off. Something's gonna happen, like something really bad. And they sent me to my room to go lay down. They grounded me. They're like, you're grounded, go to your room. So I took a nap, and then they started knocking on the window, like they're banging. They're like, wake up, grandma went into cardiac arrest. And I was like, I knew
Wow.
it. I knew it. I didn't know if it was going to be her, but I knew something was going to happen. And so everybody went to, because she lived 2 houses down. And I kind of felt a lot of guilt again for that, because I felt like I sensed it, but I wasn't sure like what to do with it, you know? She passed 2 days later, but um then after that, like in 2012, um I started having premonitions. I started having visions of my family. My family is mourning. My family is crying, and it's horrible crying. Like they're all going through it. And I'm like, what is it? What is like? I would like in random times I'll be cooking and this vision would appear, and we're all crying. And I was like, what? What is it? And then my grandmother gets diagnosed with cancer. So I keep having these visions, and I'm like, it's her. My grandma's gonna die from cancer. That's why we're crying. And then June comes around, and my uncle committed suicide that month. And I shared on a podcast about that. It's called Upside of Grief, and I talked more about that suicide. But in that month that he before he committed suicide, he came to my house one day every week, and every time he would come over, I remember that I felt anger towards him. I couldn't understand why, and like my soul was rejecting him, which is weird because this is the same uncle that tried to adopt me when I was 15. And I always loved him being around because he was like the father I wish I had. And he was just,
That's
very
good.
special to me. So that last week, that last month that he was coming over, I thought he was coming over because my father-in-law was a DJ and my uncle was a DJ. So I thought they were exchanging music or lights or whatever. That's what I thought was happening. I later ended up finding out that he came to purchase the gun off of my father-in-law.
Oh wow.
Um, and I found that out through the police when they were investigating and interrogating all of us. But that very last month that he came, I kept the visions kept getting stronger, and my spirit was rejecting his love. And that last night that he came to my house was the night before it happened. I remember he gave me a hug, and I was like angry, like so angry at him. And the guy I was with was like, Dale abrazo, give your uncle a hug. Don't be rude. Like, he loves you. Like, give him a hug. And I was like, fine. So I gave him a hug back, but in my heart, that hug did not feel right, Even though like afterwards I felt a lot of guilt because I feel like I could have hugged him longer if I would have known, because that was him saying goodbye to me. Of course I didn't know that that's what he was going to do, but he gave me a hug. I gave him a hug back, but not with willingly wanting to hug him. I was like, whatever. And then the next day, um it was ironic because I remember I was working out and the song Titanium had just released. And my mom called me right when the verse started saying, I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose, fire away. That was playing when my mom called me. And I was like, what? And you see the person running in the woods, running from the bullet, right? So I'm like, I don't know, this was like symbolic or something. She's like, you need to come to my house. And so I was like, okay. She's like, don't come with the kids, just come alone. And I'm driving to her house, and I pass the street where it happened, and it's blocked off, to the left. That's where it was happening, and I was going straight towards her street. And I remember seeing news, firefighters, ambulance, police. And as I'm passing, something immediately tells me it's your uncle and it's your cousins. I'm in that moment trying to bargain with God. God, please, if it's them, just let it be something we can overcome. And all those visions that I had came back to me that were mourning. And I was like, no, God, please, 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 if they got into an accident, please, even if they have to be in the ICU for a little bit, please take me, not them. And I'm like, trying to bargain with God the whole time I'm getting to my mom's house. And so I get there, half of my family is there. I don't see him. I don't see my cousins. I don't see my brother. I don't see one of my uncles. So I'm like, okay, who is it? What's going on? And I'm asking everybody, like, what's happening? Because everybody's crying just like in my vision. And nobody says anything. So I'm like, hello, what's happening? And that's when my sister falls to her knees and tells me they're dead. My uncle killed them. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And then she was like, he shot them in their sleep. They're dead. They're gone. And I was like, I don't believe you. I just saw him. I just saw him. I was supposed to meet with him today. You're lying. So I left my mom's house. I start calling my uncle's cell phone, and I'm like walking like out of her house, pissed off. And I'm like, why aren't you answering the phone? Like, keeps going to voicemail, and I'm like pissed. And I was like, this can't be. So I walk back to her house. Then my brother pulls up, and there's like three people holding on to him as they're giving him the news. And I just remember him like falling back from the news. And when I see him cry, that's when I was like, okay, this is for real. And that's when I started to cry. And I was like, okay, this is really happening. So we all go to the police department, and they start questioning us, which was weird because they separated our families. They separated my uncle's ex-wife or whatever, her family and ours, which was weird because we were all close until that moment. We became enemies all of a sudden. They didn't let us talk to them. And so they had our family on one side, their family on the other. They're calling us in one by one to start interrogating us. And that's when I found out that the reason my uncle was going to my house was because he purchased the gun there. And so after that incident happened, like I went down a dark path. I started drinking, I started doing drugs again, and then I made a very bad impulsive decision to leave the guy I was with and his mom, who had been taking care of me and my family, and go marry my best friend, who was nothing but a red flag. And I think I was just being very like, I don't know, I was trying to feel I was angry. I was
We all
angry.
been there.
Yeah, I was angry. And then on top of that, I was in that moment in that year, I was going to this church called uh World Church Society Mission of Church of God or something like that.
What kind of church is
And they
that?
have you heard of it?
Christian? Not heard of it, but is that like a Christian church? Mormon church? What is that?
So I'm not sure. So they believe in God the Mother, and they believe that the second coming of Christ already happened and that his name is Ansang
Oh,
Hon.
wow, that's some wild stuff.
Yeah. So I was going to this church, and then when this happened, I I backed away from God like in that instant, because the day of my uncle's viewing, I left because I couldn't take it. I had to be escorted out. I couldn't physically, emotionally say goodbye. So I went to church. That's what my heart told me to do. Go to church. Okay. I go there and I asked to speak to the deaconess, and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. I need help. Oh, well, you don't have to worry about it because he's going to hell anyways, because for what he did. And, when you commit suicide, you go to hell. I was like, what? I'm like, this does not feel right. And I was like, you know what? If you guys, I'm done. I strayed away from church and from religion for a very long time after that happened. When I explained this church to other people, they said that it was a cult.
Oh, for sure. Especially because
Yeah, they said it was a cult.
that whole thing with they believe Jesus came back already. You have no idea how much those people attack me on my podcast because I don't believe Jesus came back already. All the signs would be there if he did. The Bible's very clear that the whole world would be. You know what I mean? Anyways, I had a whole group of people attack me because I made an episode literally disproving that Jesus never came back, or not yet, for the second coming at least. And I had literally people attacking me, trying to get my page banned. They're literally like an occult.
Yeah.
They're all attacking me. They're all coming after me. One made a false statement on me and had the sheriff come to my house. That's how crazy they are. I didn't do nothing but just make an episode. They're making up lies that I'm threatening to beat him up and all this nonsense. But anyways, the sheriff came over. He saw that. I showed him the messages from my end. He's like, oh yeah, these people are fucking nuts. But anyways, yeah, go ahead. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, so I was part of a church that was a cult, I guess. And when my uncle committed suicide, I backed away from religion and everything. I was mad. I was angry at God. I hated everything. I hated everyone. I left the guy I was with. I left a stable home to go be with somebody that I thought was gonna be it for me. And which clearly it wasn't. I was with him for like a few years. I mean, it was cool. He was a great provider and everything. He was good. We were a good team when it came to raising the kids, but like romantically and all that, it was not that great. And I later on found out it was because he was not into women. because he cheated on me with a man.
Oh, wow.
But I'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So the year that he decided to tell me he didn't want to be with me anymore was the same year my grandmother passed away, and the same year my ex-mother-in-law passed away. They passed away 2 months from each other, and I went hard on the alcohol and I went hard on the drugs. I was doing cocaine at the time, and I remember that the doctors had told me, you need to stop drinking. You have stage 3 liver disease. And if you keep getting worse, you're going to need a transplant, which you're not going to qualify for because you're an alcoholic.
Yeah, yeah.
So at this point, I was like, I don't care. I hate everyone. I hate everything. I just lost my grandma. I just lost my mother-in-law. Like, I didn't care, you know? And so I remember on my 27th birthday, I went with my sister and my ex-sister-in-law because we share birthdays. She's only a couple of days younger than me. We would always celebrate our birthday together. So this specific day, I'm dealing with the separation of my husband, my first husband, dealing with the losses of the people that I love. So I drank, I did cocaine, and I overdosed. I remember getting into an argument with the guy I used to be with, and he's like, my mom would have been so disappointed in you. This is not what she wants. I'm like, you don't know what she wants. Like, leave me the F alone. So I remember when he left, I started walking down the hill and I collapsed. I remember feeling pain in my chest. Like, it was like excruciating pain. Like, it was horrible. But then the pain went away, and I remember seeing my body there, and I fell into some bushes, which was funny. The guy that I was with was trying to help me, but he couldn't help me much because at this point I'm like almost 300 pounds and he's like 120, short person. He can't really help me. So he calls, for help. And as this is happening, I'm seeing everything happen and I'm floating away from my body, but I knew that I was not human because when I looked down to see for my hands, there was nothing there, but I knew it was me. And so I'm like floating away and everything stands still. Time stood still and I could see everything and I could hear everything. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, you become part of everything and everything becomes part of you. But like, energy wise, we're not human anymore. And I could feel the presence of God, but it was very far away from me. And I was like, why? Where are you? Am I really going to hell? Like, why can't I feel you? Why can't I see you? And then I'm like, I'm gonna go to hell. I'm gonna go to hell because I'm doing drugs. I'm gonna go to hell because I'm drinking. I'm gonna go to hell because I don't believe in you anymore. And because of everything that I've done as a kid, like, I'm gonna be punished for everything. Like, this is gonna be my judgment. But I could feel God's presence, but really far away. And it was because it was not my time. So I get brought back. They had me they pumped my stomach. They had me in they had me hooked onto a lot of different IVs to flush the drugs out of me. And that was my first death. And then this happened in the end of 2017. Early 2018, I get a surgery to help me lose weight so I wouldn't, keep getting worse on my liver. And that's the same year that I separated from my first husband. And I had moved out. I was staying in a homeless shelter. But then that same year, when he was visiting with my kids, my daughter had mentioned in school that she noticed that he had substances around his house. And my daughter was also learning about drugs. So that's when CPS got involved in my life, saying that my ex-husband was selling drugs and that he was a bad person for my kids to be with. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not with him anymore. We're separated. I have my own apartment. I have my own job. He doesn't know where I live. So what does that have to do with me? They're like, you have to divorce him. We want to see that you physically get the paperwork started and you need to get a restraining order. I was like, okay, that's fine, but that's going to take time and it takes money. I'm a single mom right now, And so they're like, no, you need to do this tomorrow at this time. Because I didn't do it at the time they wanted me to do it, they came and took my kids away from me. And I never neglected my kids. I didn't abuse my children. I was not a bad mom, but they took my kids saying that I failed to provide safety for my children, even though I wasn't even with the guy. He didn't even know where I lived. So they take my kids away and I go into a darker path that leads into my psychosis beginning. At this point, I'm dating a guy who also had a drug problem, which I learned the hard way. When my kids get removed, I start drinking again and I start smoking meth again, but it's not cutting it. It's not making the pain go away because they just took my kids, So the guy that I'm with and my friend that just got out of a rehab, they're like, "Oh yeah, you want to feel less pain, you want to feel more numb, we know a better way." And that's when they introduced me to the needle. and I became an IV user, and I was like, okay, this is helping. But the moment that the meth hit my veins, it was like a veil was uncovered. Like everything that I had been seeing when I was little, all the visions that I had were now like complete. Like there was nothing holding back from my reality and the spiritual world, because as soon as that meth hit my bloodstream, I saw a lot of stuff, like weird stuff. And there was a being that was sitting right next to me that said, and you're gonna see things for what they really are now. I've been trying to show you for a long time. And I was like, who are you? Like, why are you sitting here with me? And the guy that I was with, he was like, you were having a conversation with somebody in the closet. And I was like, well, somebody was right there. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean I can't. Like, so this thing is telling me I'm gonna show you what's really out here. It's you guys are not the only people here. This is real too in this side of the world. And I was like, okay, well, show me. So it would tell me like to grab this mirror and to like point at a certain angle, and I would see like spaceships, I would see dimensional beings, and I could communicate with other things that were not good things. And so that's where it started. And then also while this is happening, the guy that I'm dating, he leads me to believe that I wanted to experience things that I really didn't want to, but because of the drugs, it was easier to manipulate me. So we start having like orgies at my apartment. My house became all of a sudden became the dope house. It became there was he became bisexual when he was on meth. And so he would invite a bunch of guys over. So I have a bunch of gay guys at my house. I have a bunch of prostitutes at my house, and there's all these orgies happening. And while these orgies are happening, there's these beings that are feeding off that sexual energy. And I was like, this is crazy. I don't want to be part of this. Like, I don't want to see none of this. Like, I just wanted to get high and not feel any pain. Like, this is crazy. So this continued to happen for a while, and I was getting tired of it, and I was losing a lot of weight at this point. I went from 300 pounds to 113 in less than 6
Wow.
months.
I can't even imagine you being that big. That's
I
wild.
have pictures. I'll probably send them
300.
to you guys.
Oh,
Like,
hey, send it to me, man. We'll be friends after this at each other. I'd love to pick your brain more, but I'm really quick. I don't know if you know this, but meth is like known to be the gay drug. Like it's the
mhm.
number one drug to like turn men gay and women lesbian. I don't know what it does to the brain, but my opinion, I mean, I've never done meth before. I'm not gay, so I wouldn't know. But the way I see is that maybe because maybe they do it because when they have no money and they're willing to do anything for it, or is it? I don't know if it's something that changes their attraction to humans. But to me, I think it's just most of the time when I see people doing sick stuff like that, like like dudes hooking up with other dudes, it usually starts in jail with them.
Oh
They
yeah.
or borrow it and then they can't pay it back, and then they start withdrawing, and then they also owe the money, so they start doing the sexual favors, and then it just leads out into the street. But it's wild, man. All the stuff you're telling me, like, man, I've hung around with some pretty crazy people before, and some of these stories you're telling me are like things that I've witnessed before from other people. But yeah, keep going, man. It's a crazy story. Good.
Yeah, meth is a very sexual drug. I learned that when I was 12 and it was introduced to me and I was trafficked. That's why I didn't really feel the negative part of being raped by all these men, because of the meth bringing that sexual want and
No,
craving for sex.
honestly, so it changes your brain then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with this guy, when he would shoot up, like I'm telling you, like I even remember I recorded because I was like, just in case later on he tries to say anything, I got it on video. He would pick specific people he wanted to mess around with. And the first time he did it, he made me hold his hand. And it, to me, it was like, okay, you've done this before. You've done this before, because I'm a woman, and if somebody's gonna go through the back door, that's gonna hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he didn't even flinch, and he was holding my hand, and I was like, all right. The first time I saw him doing
Wow.
it, I was like, this doesn't feel so good. I don't want to see this. Like,
That's
but then
wild.
he would invite other people, like, he would invite women, and so it was like me and another woman, him and another man, and then we would switch off. And it was like if he didn't have his way, because he was a well-known gangster and from his hood, but nobody knew this side of him. So, but the people that were messing around in our circle, they were afraid of him. There was a point where he made me have sex with that gay man, and the gay man was like, I don't like women. I'm not going to be able to. Oh, you better do it or you know what's going to happen. So and it was weird, and it was like, oh, okay, we just got to get it over with. Like, you know, it was weird. And there was also another guy that we used to mess around with a lot. And I remember like he got into therapy after he got sober too, because he said he felt a lot of shame and guilt for the things that he and I had to do to please this guy. There was a point where I was so high on drugs that I was out of it and not really coming to, like, I was out of it, you know? And so it was that he liked to see other people have sex with me, right? That's what would get him on and get him going. But the moment he saw that I would at any point enjoy it, he would get mad, and then he would start beating on me. Oh, you like this, man? Da-da-da, you're cheating on me. Like, bro, we just sat here and we all had agreed this is what was gonna happen. Like, I never beat up on you when you were having sex with all these other girls, you know what I mean? And so that guy that we were normally doing stuff with, the last time he said he couldn't do it no more was the day that he saw that I was like so passed out from the drugs that he's like, I felt like I was having sex with the corpse because you were out of it. I thought you were dead and it didn't feel good. So after that incident, he got sober and he went into rehab because he said that made him, like, you know, snap out of it. But this guy, he was like, not only was he having sex with men and women, he started having sex with objects. Okay. So
shit.
he made a hole on the mattress and he started having sex with the mattress. But I could see in the spiritual world that it was like a sex demon that he was having sex with. And he started having sex with the vacuum, everything he can get access to. And I was like, you're weird. Like, it started to creep me out. And the more I tried to leave him, the more he would beat me. And eventually, like, I knew I needed to get help because he isolated me from my family. My brother and I, like, he would come to my front door and knock on the door, and he would hide me in the closet, cover my mouth so that he would think we were not home. Because my brother hadn't heard from me from March, and this was like almost October. He's like, he would call me, he's like, where are you? What's going on? Like, even my ex-husband was like worried, and people would come to my house, try to see where I was at. Nobody had heard from me since my kids were taken away. So I remember at one point, we're in September. I remember reaching out to my friend, the one that I had collapsed on my 27th birthday. I called him and his mom to come help me confront my family and let them know I wanted to get into rehab. So they come with me, and we're at the Denny's, and I asked my mom and my brother for help. And my brother had said something, instead of being helpful, like when you're trying to help an addict, you can't say something that's going to trigger them to want to go back and use, you know, because he said something that was like, you know what, forget this. I shouldn't have came here in the first place. So I go back home and I end up using again. And that time that I used, I hadn't slept in 2 weeks. So I'm already like, my psychosis is horrible. And I told myself, this is all just a dream. In my dreams, when I die in my dreams, I wake up to this reality. So I told myself, if I cut myself, I'll die in this dream and I'll wake up to my reality. But if I cut myself and I bleed to death, then at least I'll be in peace. I won't have to feel anything anymore. That's what my thought was. And so sure enough, I severed my arm and I'm bleeding out. And that was my second death. I get taken to the hospital. Of course, my veins are all shut out because I'm shooting up and they're all collapsed. So they try to get me on my neck. They miss. I'm squirting out of my neck. And they had to use an ultrasound machine to find another one on this side. And they finally hooked me up. But at this point, I already flatlined. So they're doing CPR on me. And at this point, I'm experiencing leaving my body again. And I see everything that's happening, everything that's going on. I could even see my kids where they were at. And I was like, what am I doing? What is this? And I felt in my head, I was like, I need to go to hell. I can't, there's no way I can go to heaven because I failed my kids. I did to my kids what my mom did to me. They're in the system now. They're in foster care. Like, I already ruined their childhood like mine was, you know, like there's no point in fighting for them. I'm like, there's no point in fighting for anything. So again, I felt God's presence, but it was very far away. And I was like, God, what's happening? Like, help me. Like, why? And at this point, I'm still angry at him since 2012. I'm like, is it because I don't believe in you? Like, show me, give me a reason to believe that you're real. Like, why am I here? You let all these things happen to me. You let my dad abuse me. You let my cousin, my uncle, this guy, and all these weird things that are happening. I see the spiritual stuff. I know it's not all that great. Like, I'm having this angry conversation with God, but he's so far from me, and it's because it's not my time to go. So at this point, I'm at the hospital and they had stabilized me, but then I contacted MRSA while I'm there, and then my blood became septic. And at that point, I knew I was not gonna make it because my grandmother, she died from septic blood. So I'm like, I'm gonna die just like my grandma did. And so I was not fighting for my life. I wasn't like trying to, get better. I was just there, like letting myself die. And they tried every antibiotic that they could, and every single thing that they gave me, I was allergic to. So I have a long list of allergic reactions to a lot of medicines, antibiotics, which sucks. And then they gave me the last one, which gave me a severe reaction. My body turned red. They diagnosed me with Redmond syndrome because I turned red like a tomato. And the nurses were freaking out. They're like, give her some Benadryl, give her some, she's going to die. And I'm at this point, I'm very weak, and my ex-husband's there. And I'm like, I'm going to die here. The hospital, the same hospital my grandma died. I was like, you have to take me out of this hospital. Like, I'm going to die. And so I told him, I heard a voice tell me, this is the hospital that's going to save you. So I told him, this is the hospital you need to take me to, specifically that location. They're going to know what's wrong with me. So he's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, but the hospital was not trying to let me leave because they saw the condition that I was in. So he literally, him and the guy that I was dating, they like took everything off me and they threw me on a wheelchair and they like ran. They ran with me and they threw me in the car and they take me to another hospital, the hospital I asked them to take me to. And when I'm there, I remember getting a phone call from my little brother who's in the military. And I hear him tell me, he's like, do I have to, he's in Korea at the time. And he's like, do I have to come home and say goodbye to my sister? And that right there, that hurt me because I was like, I can't do that to my brother. He was one of the people that him and my grandfather were the only ones that showed no emotion when my uncle committed suicide. They were the strong ones for the family. And I said, I can't put my brother through that. And so that's when I said, I have to fight. I have to fight. I can't do that to him. I have to fight for my kids. So I ended up getting better. And so you would think after that happened that my life would get better, that I would stop using drugs, but I didn't. I lost when I came back to my apartment. I lost my apartment. My car got repossessed. I lost my job. I had already missed a few visits from seeing my kids, so they were making it a lot harder for me to get my kids. And so now I'm homeless. So then I asked my ex-husband, I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, there's an abandoned house across the street from my house. You guys can stay there. And I was like, okay, cool. So we go over there, and while we're staying there, instead of getting better, it was just another excuse to just keep getting high. So while we're there, we start getting high, and then I made a Ouija board. I had explained to the guy I was with when I was little, we used to do these rituals, and he's like, I don't believe you. Let's try it out. So we found a board, and I made a Ouija board with a blade with my own hands. Like I just Googled the picture and everything, so my blood was on it. And so we introduced the game of the Ouija board. Before we did that, we all smoked meth, and it was four of us. One, two, yeah, it was four of us, and two of them were recording. So as we open up the game, the first thing that we experienced is the house started to shake, like there was an earthquake, and we're looking around like, whoa, like what happened? And then after that, we heard like a loud swishing noise, like there was a machine about to start. And then after that, we see these blue lights coming from everywhere, like around the house. And we're like, there's no way there's light here. This is an abandoned house. The lights are turned off. And then our first thought was, oh shoot, it's the feds or something. We have drugs all over the house. They're gonna raid us. But then we look out the window and there's nothing there. So we don't know where the lights are coming from, where this noise is coming from, and why the house shook. So then at this point, my ex-husband gets up and he starts walking up and down the hallway. And when he comes back to where I'm at, he's like, recording with this iPhone. And then he points at the guy that I was dating and he's like, do you see that? And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then it was like a demon standing behind the guy that I was dating. It was standing right behind him. I described this demon to my husband, and he said that it looks like Molech. Molech. I can't even pronounce his name. Molech?
Moloch.
Yeah,
Moloch
there you go, Molech.
with the bull horns. That
Yep,
one. Oh
yep.
wow.
Yeah,
What
so
did
it's
it look
standing
like? What did it
behind
look like?
him. And we're just like, yep, we're done. And then they're like, no, you gotta ask. You gotta ask who it is. So we asked the board, are you a good spirit? It says no. Are you a bad spirit?
Obviously.
It says yes. And then we asked, spell who are you? And it starts to spell Zozo. At that point, we
Zozo.
Zozo, yeah.
That's
At that
another
point, we
demon.
Googled and we're like, that's it, we're done.
Zozo demon. This not one. It's in one of the. What's that movie you said you saw? Insidious or whatever, The Conjuring. One of those movies has that Zozo demon in it. That's crazy shit, man. Wow.
Yeah, at that point, I was done playing with the Ouija board. We never closed the game out though, so I feel like because we didn't, stuff still lingered. But he ended up grabbing the Ouija board and he went to go play with it in the cemetery.
Burn that shit. Jeez. So what happened at the cemetery?
Yeah, so he plays with it at the cemetery. He comes back and he started acting weird. He started acting so strange. He started having this behavior, and I saw this little creature. I can't even explain what the creature looked like. I just know it made some weird noises. And he started collecting trash. Like he started collecting this and creating like this mount, like this altar of trash. And I was like, what are you doing? Like in different parts of the abandoned house. And I could hear like a little creature in there eating, but I couldn't see it. And I was like, what is that? Like, what did you bring back with you? So at this point, I'm starting to get scared of him because I looked at his eyes and I could not see his soul. And he's just keeps getting high and whatever. So at this point, and he's already like sent me to the hospital multiple times for hitting me. One of the biggest ones was I was sleeping and I woke up to him choking me. And I remember I grabbed around to see what was something that I could defend myself with. And I grabbed a metal rod and I hit him with it, but he catches it. I'm 125 pounds at this point. I'm only 5'4". He's like 6 feet tall and he's like 200 pounds. So he grabs the rod from me. He starts hitting me with it. And I move, like I put my hand to protect myself. So he ends up hitting me hard in my hand, all over my leg. And at this point, like when he starts to see blood, he stops hitting me. And I'm crying because there's like, and I have like this really nasty scar on my hand from it. They had to open me up to let the blood out. Like I said, I could send you guys pictures of how bad it was before. I have pictures. Um, so I remember taking a shower and I'm bleeding and he's mocking me. As I'm crying, he's like, oh, well, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Did it hurt? You shouldn't have hit me with it first. I was like, I was sleeping. He's like, yeah, well, you were cheating on me. So-and-so told me. I was like, you're tripping, dude. I was asleep. No, I saw you cheating on me. So he was experiencing psychosis too.
Wow.
And my hand is like, looks like it's about to pop. So I told him, please, I need to go to the hospital. So he calls one of my best friends and he's like, you better not tell her that, that I hit you. So he's like, I'm gonna make it easier. So I'm in the shower and he like kicks me and I slip and I fall on my arm to make it worse. So when she gets there, she sees this, she saw me falling. She didn't saw him tripping me. She saw me falling and she's like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, no, I think I broke my hand. So she helped me get changed, takes me to the hospital. And while we're there, he's like, you better not tell nobody that I hit you. And then he's like, I'll be back. I'm going to go look around to see if there's any clean needles for me to use. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is going to get us in trouble. You know what I mean? So that was one of the times that I went to the hospital. I kept missing a lot of my visits with my kids because of this. And then there was times that I would go to my visits with my kids where he would always be harassing me. So at this point, I'm just like trying to leave that relationship but not knowing how. And so there was an incident where we go to a church. And I was like, if there's any other place that I can go to and ask for help, it's going to be a church. So we go to a church and he stupidly goes into the bathroom to smoke meth in the bathroom. And I'm sitting there, I'm praying and I ask for a sign. And this nun approaches me while I'm looking at like the flyers that they have. And I have a flyer in my hand that has like ultrasounds on it. And then she puts her hand on my shoulder and she's like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Don't worry. It's going to be okay. And then she's like, and it's going to be a girl. That's what she told me. And I was like, what are you talking about? What's going to be a girl? Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, does this lady think I'm pregnant? So, sure enough, about a week after that, I decided to go take a pregnancy test and it was positive. They told me I was pregnant and the guy was with me and he was like, oh yeah, you should get an abortion right quick. And I was like, what? Like from the moment he found out I was pregnant, he told me to get an abortion. And, when I knew I was pregnant, I was like, I have to stop using because I'm pregnant. Like, this is a life inside of me. I can't do this to this baby. So I tried to quit cold turkey. I stopped shooting up and I was withdrawing really bad. I was withdrawing really, really bad. And I remember that I went to the doctor and the doctor was like, I told her how much I was using and how I was getting high. And she's like, that's very dangerous for you. Like, we have to wean you off. Like, it's called harm reduction. So I was a high risk pregnancy at this facility and they were helping me, taper off the meth because of how I was trying to quit. Like, it was bad for my body. So while this is all happening, in February, um, the guy, the last ultimate thing that he did to me where I was like, this is it. Like, I can't be with this guy, was on Valentine's Day when, so my husband was selling drugs out of this abandoned house. This guy comes to buy some stuff off my ex-husband. And then the guy that I'm with goes to talk to this guy, and he made an agreement with this guy to give me to him in exchange for a needle, drugs, and his phone so he could watch porn.
Wow.
So he lets this guy rape me while I'm pregnant with his child. And then my ex-husband's knocking on the door because he hears me crying. And then the guy's like, "Oh, go away, go away." And they bust into the house, into the room, and they take this guy. And he's like, "We're going to come back for you." So I get into the shower. And while I'm in the shower, the guy makes a video where he's like apologizing for what had just happened. He's like, "You don't deserve this." His nickname for me was Hoochie. So on the video, he's like, "I'm sorry, Hoochie, you don't deserve this. You're a really good person. Before I met you, you had everything going for yourself. I'm a monster. There's this demon I can't get rid of. He told me to do this, and they just won't leave me alone." And he's like, "You don't deserve this." Like, his personalities would switch. He had like alter egos, you know? And sure enough, when my ex-husband came back, he told me, he's like, "I need you to leave, walk to the store, and don't look back. Don't worry about what's going to happen next." And I was like, okay. So I put my slippers on and I'm about to walk out, and I see these two cars pull up. There's like 12 to 15 men in this car. And I knew what was going to happen to this guy next. But he knew too. He grabs me, picks me up, puts me over his shoulder, and runs. So this guy used to be a track star in high school. He was running from the cops too, so he was on the run. So when he saw that they were coming after him for what he did that night to me, he put me over his shoulders and ran off with me. They didn't do anything to him because they were gonna hurt me too, you know? So my ex-husband's like, "I'm gonna get him. Don't worry, I'm gonna get him." And so that same night when we came back to the abandoned house, I did not want to go back in there with him. So I ran to the car that I had. I was renting a car, and I get in there and I start trying to drive away, but he jumps into the truck and he starts trying to break into the car, and I'm trying to drive away. I called 911 and I have them on Bluetooth. So they hear everything and they recorded everything. That's how they convicted him. I'm like, he's trying to kill me. He's trying to break into the car. And so they heard when he broke the window and he was like beating on me as I'm driving, and I'm over here driving, kicking him, trying to get him out of the car. And I was able to get him like to the point where his feet are dragging. So he's holding onto the door. I drag him for 2 blocks. And I told the cops, I was like, "Look, it's either his life or mine, or we're both going to die together, because if I pull over, he's going to kill me." And so they're like, "Okay, keep driving down this road. We're going to block it off." They have helicopters and everything. And so I get to a dead end, and I was like, "We're here. Please get him." There's like a big wall, a cement wall. There's no way he can get over it. And so I was wrong, because he actually jumped over it. The cops couldn't get to him. He got away. They got to me, and they start treating me, and they take me to the hospital. So I'm at the hospital with these 2 cops who were supposed to stay with me the whole time in case he came back. And they left to go get some coffee or something. And in that moment that they left, he shows up. And when I saw him show up, I grabbed a piece of paper and I tried to write on a paper. It says, "Let the nurse know that he was there." I told him, "I'm going to use the bathroom." And when I got up to use the bathroom, I went to the nurse's station and I put the paper down, and I'm trying to tell the nurse, like, "Look at my hand. I have a note for you." But she was like, "The bathroom's over there, honey." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I tried showing her my hand, but then he comes from behind me, grabs my hand, takes the paper, throws it in the trash, and he's like, "We got to go." And so he takes me like that in the gown, takes off the IV and everything, and we leave. And after that, the day after, my ex-husband was like, "I'm gonna help you. We're gonna get out of here." He knew the baby that I was pregnant of wasn't his, even though we're still legally married. And he's like, "I don't care. I'm gonna help you. We got to get you away from here." And so the next day, my ex-husband gets arrested, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is horrible. How am I gonna get away from this guy?" And sure enough, during one of the times that because he was a booster, one of the times that he had left to go boost, I took advantage of that and I left, and I went to my sister-in-law's house. But he found me, And the whole night he was trying to come in, and she was like, nope, you can't come in here, leave her alone, just go away. And so the night passed, and then the next day she left to the hospital, and I was falling asleep. I had the door locked and everything. He broke in again. I woke up to him, suffocating me, strangling me, and he had his knee on my chest, and he was punching me hard, and he was like, I don't want to have a stupid baby with you. Like, this was my third death. He beat me really bad. He stabbed me a couple times. And I remember by the time the cops busted in, like, he choked me so bad that when I was crying, something had snapped in my voice or something, that the cry went from like high pitch to a low pitch. And I was like, in my head, I was like, why does my voice sound like that? And so, like, I'm trying to, scream, I'm gurgling blood. And the police bust in, and he runs off through the back, and I collapsed. So then they take me to the hospital, and I remember waking up in the ICU, but they told me that I had died, and that they had to give me 2 blood transfusions because I had lost a lot of blood, and that I might not make it, and that my baby might not make it. So I was there, struggling to survive, and he came to the hospital saying that he was my gay friend or my gay cousin. And my sister's the one that recognized him and let the nurses know. And he ran off. And they ended up finding him a couple days later. The cops told me that he was running in the fields with the horses, and that's where they caught him. And I was like, well, thank God that you guys found him. So while I'm at the hospital, I asked God for a sign. I was like, God, I need you. Like, I need you. I know I said I hated you, but this can't be real. Like, there's a baby inside me. You're giving me life for a reason. I have a purpose, right? So then I get interviewed by this program called 2911, after the verse Jeremiah 29:11. It's a maternity home out here. And for some reason, like, they were like, yeah, we're gonna help you. We're gonna help you. So I moved in with that program on Mother's Day. And right there, that's where I was able to sober up my first time. I did my first program. I went to domestic violence classes. I was able to completely quit using. I was 5 months pregnant of my daughter when I was able to completely get off the meth. And they helped me with my parenting classes, and to do what I had to do with CPS to get my kids back because they were still in foster care. And that was in 2019. I had my daughter. She was born healthy. She did not test positive for meth. She was a healthy baby. Although she did have some delays as she grew older because of it, but she's good. She's thriving. So then after I leave the maternity home, I left in January 2020, where I also got my citizenship. I became a citizen January 2020. And I got my apartment. 2911 helped me move, and I got my kids back, and everything was going good. So this happened in January. March 2020, my ex-husband gets out of jail, and he's like, oh, we should work it out. We're still married. We're both sober. Let's work on our family. And I was like, but this daughter is not yours. He's like, that's fine. I don't care. Like, your older daughter's not mine either, so I don't mind. I was like, okay, cool. So I believed him, and then COVID happened. And we were in therapy. My kids were in therapy, but then because of COVID, everything stopped. And in the midst of all this, I ended up finding out that my younger son, the one that was in foster care, had been sexually assaulted. And so I'm dealing with his behaviors, his traumas, and no therapy. And then my daughter, she's also acting up with no therapy. I call the crisis number, and I was like, I need help. I'm scared I'm going to relapse. I just got my kids back. The therapy stopped. Like, I need help. Is there like a place I can go to with my kids? And they're like, no, everything is shut down because of COVID. You have to figure it out. They're like, unless you actually relapse, then we can take you guys in. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm over here freaking out. And then we started experiencing paranormal stuff. Like, I knew it was not just me, because my kids to this day, they do not like to talk about when we lived in that apartment because they're so scared of what they saw. Um, at first it started with seeing blue lights. There was like these blue orbs in the living room, and I was like, man, somebody's messing with us. Maybe somebody's outside with some flashlights or something. But then we started seeing the trees moving. And then my son was like, there's a man in my room. There's a man standing in my room. And I ran over there, and I was like, there's nothing there. And then my daughter at the same time, she's like, Mom, I saw some hands coming out of the closet. So I run to her room and I was like, there's nothing there. And then my son, Mom, it's over here now. So there's like things trying to reach at my kids and they're starting to get scared. And I remember at this point, I put a camera because I wanted to capture what it was that what they were seeing. You know, maybe the camera will capture it. And I remember it was like a hologram to me. Again, like I had the ability to teleport from my reality to the spiritual world. So it was like if I leaned a certain way or I looked through the reflections, that's where I could see what was actually there according to what I could see. And I looked up at the sky and I remember I looked and I saw what looked like a spaceship. And I was like, is this why everybody's indoor during COVID? Like, is this stuff actually happening and nobody's allowed to see or nobody's actually aware because we're indoors? Because this, and then I remember too, because my friend took a picture of the moon at the same time I took a picture of the moon and it looked completely different. And I was like, there's no way you're literally like down the street. Like, how do we both have different perspectives of the moon if we are like in the same block, you know? And it looked like, you know, when I would take pictures of the sky, it kind of looked like I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Chicken Little, how when the sky was falling and the pieces of the sky was falling off. That's what it looked like to me. My kids were seeing it too, so everything just looked weird. And at this point, I'm already feeling like I'm gonna relapse. I'm seeing some stuff, and I'm like, I'm experiencing psychosis, and I'm not even using drugs yet. And then after during all of this is when I found out that my ex-husband was cheating on me. He was like disappearing. And I was like, something doesn't seem right. He had gotten us all new phones. So I was going to give his old phone to my son. And while I'm looking through his phone, I see a conversation between him and someone. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's in love with this person. Like, I could never understand because he never talked to me like that. And we've been best friends for so many years. And as I keep reading the message, there's a conversation where the guy was like, oh, I'm going to tell everybody that you da 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 da. And I'm showing them pictures and whatever. And I was like, it's a dude. It's a dude. Oh my God, it's a dude. Oh my God, it's a dude. I didn't say anything to him yet. I started to do my homework and try to look who this guy was. I started looking for him on social media and I couldn't find him because I didn't know what his name was. 2 weeks later, the guy finds me. And I was like, cool, come over to my house. So I invited him over to my house and we start chopping it up. And then he was like, you know, initially when I came here, I was going to start problems with you because that's my man. And I was like, okay. And he's like, but now that I met you, you have this aura to you that's very healing and welcoming. So I think you're a cool person. And I was like, well, thank you. And then my ex-husband shows up and he's like, what's going on here? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me, do you know this guy? And he's like, kind of. And I was like, I'm not gonna shame you. Like, if this is who you are, it's who you are, you know. I was hurting inside because I felt betrayed and I don't know what I felt. I felt a lot of anger, but I was not expressing that. I didn't want to make him feel shame or uncomfortable. I didn't want the other guy to feel some type of way either. I told them both that I was accepting of it, but deep down inside, I don't think I was. I didn't process that situation because eventually I ended up relapsing. And that day that I relapsed, I had a really bad psychosis experience, you know, sleep paralysis situation that happened. When I went into sleep paralysis, I had this experience where I'm laying on the couch and this being comes up to me and he tells me he's Anunnaki, but he wasn't speaking to me with his voice. It was all telepathically, and he had like this armor on and he had like these dreads and it looked, I don't know, like it looked crazy, like tall person, and not even a person. I don't even know what it was, but it was talking to me and he's like, we're harvesting you guys. You're not going to feel anything. I promise. You guys are going to be taken somewhere better. And I was like, what do you mean? So they didn't hurt the kids. They didn't do anything to the kids. They put them into this deep sleep and the kids floated up into space. And then the rest of us, like the adults and stuff, they were mutilating our bodies with lasers, but we couldn't feel a thing. I felt in my head like it's hurting because I could see it visually, so it has to hurt. And but I could smell the blood. I could taste it. It was so metallic and stuff. And then after they chopped up the bodies, they would put it under this conveyor through a wood chipper, and then what was left, they would throw it into fire. and I could feel the fire. It was so hot that it was cold. And I was like, what is happening? Like, where are they taking? And they would put the other bodies that they weren't chopping up into these things, and they were using the trees to move them. That's why I was seeing the trees move, I guess. And they put our heads in these jars, and then they put us in these carts that were like a little train thingy that would take us into the mountains. And there was these 12 beings, very tall beings that had their heads covered, and they were communicating in a weird language. And but somehow I could understand what they were saying, and they were gonna take us somewhere else. And so they take us to this place, and it was kind of like the Matrix, where they had they had bodies, a bunch of bodies all over, like in these fields, and they had no heads. It was just bodies. And then what they were doing is they would put our heads, everybody would go take their turn, and they put my head on top of this hand that was like a giant hand. And as the hand pulls me closer to its face, my body starts to grow, my limbs start to grow. And it tells me, you have a purpose. I'm going to put you in different worlds, like different realms, different dimensions, and you're going to serve a purpose in each one of them. But you, that's you, the original you, is going to stay here with me. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but can I go home? I'm like, just wake me up. Just wake me up. And so this thing puts me down and starts making clones of me. So all these bodies that are in tubs are being like duplicated versions of me and other people with other bodies, and they're being put in other realities, like other worlds that were similar to ours, because our world ended in 2020. That's what this thing told me. So nobody's aware of it because nobody's gonna know, nobody's gonna feel. They said that when you die, you're not supposed to feel pain, so they put us in an alter reality similar to our own. And you know, when I came to, I remember my body was glitching and vibrating, and I was like, it felt real to me. I was like so scared to even talk to anybody about it. And I was like, okay, I relapsed. I cannot do drugs because clearly the psychosis is getting worse. And then I started having negative thoughts in my head. I wanted to kill my ex-husband. I was like, he cheated on me with a man. He shouldn't have done that to me. Like, he, you know, I had horrible thoughts in my head. So I was like, I need help. So I remember that day, I had kicked him out. I was like, I don't want to be with you no more. Like, you're not going to help me get clean. You're selling drugs, and you know, you enable me. So I had kicked him out. And then the day that he came to, he was supposed to come the next day to come get his stuff. And again, like I said, I have cameras in my house, right? Um, that day, my daughter, who's a year old at this time, starts having seizures. And I was like, this is unusual. Like, she shouldn't be having seizures. So as she's having seizures, I call her pediatrician, and he's like, okay, just time her seizures. If they pass this amount of time, I need you to call an ambulance. And I was like, okay. So 4 hours pass by. I'm playing with her, and she starts to convulse again. And then she goes limp. And I was like freaking out because I was like, what is happening? So I started doing CPR on her, and I'm calling 911. And my ex-husband's like trying to take the phone from me. He's like, don't do that. Don't do that. You don't know what you're going to get yourself into. You're going to get in trouble. You just got the kids back. I was like, what do you mean? My daughter is limp. I don't even know if she's alive right now. He's like, watch, just trust me. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. And I was like, what the heck is he even talking about? So I ignore him. Like, I'm on the phone with the 911. They come, they continue doing CPR on her. She's still having seizures. And, so I go to the hospital with her, and I kept thinking in my head, like, what he meant, why he was not letting me take my daughter to the hospital. And so I'm at the hospital, they're doing tests, they can't figure out what's wrong with her. And then they took one look at me, and they go and they look through my history, and they're like, we need you to go drug test. I was like, that's fine. I told him, I was like, I had relapse not too long ago. So if I test dirty, it's going to come dirty. I'm not going to deny it. So when they tested me, it was negative. You know, I had only relapsed at one time. So they wanted to prove that I was using when this happened, and it didn't I wasn't using. I was already sober. And so then they didn't want to believe that I had nothing to do with whatever was happening to her. So they're like, we're going to do one more test on your daughter. And I was like, that's fine. I want to know what's wrong with her too. And so they did a urine test on her, and they found out that she had ingested meth. She had ingested meth. That's what it was. And so I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I don't bring drugs in my house. When I do drugs, it's never in the house. It's always in the garage downstairs, which is 3 floors down. And I change my clothes and everything. They didn't believe me. So immediately CPS comes and they take her away. And I'm facing possible charges of neglect, child endangerment, and whatnot. I'm like, I'm not guilty. I didn't do none of this. Like, and I told them, I was like, I have cameras. I have cameras. Go check my cameras. So they subpoenaed, they grabbed my cameras. I abandoned that house. Once they let me go out, leave the hospital, they had me have a psych evaluation and everything. When I was finally released, I checked myself into rehab, and I I got into treatment. And while they're doing all their investigating, it comes out to find out that that day that my ex-husband came to the house to pick up his stuff, it was early in the morning, so I was still asleep in my room, and he's in the front room, which was my son's room, and he's hitting the pipe. My son is 5 feet away from him, and my daughter was crawling to him, and he's hitting the pipe and he's blowing smoke at her face, and then he hands her the pipe and she sucks on it. That's how she ingested the drugs. So once they finally were able to see through that video what had happened, they cleared me of all charges and they gave me the opportunity to get my kids back. And I did. I sobered up. I got myself into treatment. I gave up my apartment because of all the weird stuff that I saw there. I was still experiencing psychosis here and there, but I tried to ignore it. And that was in 2020. The end of 2020 when they got removed was November. And so I'm in a therapy, I'm in treatment, and I'm in a sober living. I gave up my apartment because I was like, in order for me to get my kids back, I have to heal myself, because this is more than just a drug addiction. Like, there's something wrong with me, and I knew that I had to fix all the stuff that started from when I first started as a child, you know? So I agreed to let my children stay in foster care because I could have gotten them back, you know? 2911, the lady who runs it, she took my 1-year-old daughter and she supported me. She's like, I'm gonna take care of your daughter. We believe in you. We want you to get better. Just get better, you know? And so my daughter and my son were in foster care with the former, not the former people, but somebody who had formerly taken them. And I was like, okay, this is it. I have to buckle down. I have to get my stuff together. And I was fighting it. I was fighting my demons while trying to get sober, because, you know, I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm no longer using. I'm experiencing psychosis. So they diagnosed me with schizoaffective disorder because of the psychosis that I was still experiencing. But at this point, I'm like, I can't trust these people. Like, the more I speak on what I see, the more they're going to think I'm crazy and the more they're going to want to medicate me. So I kept a lot of things to myself. And so then I started doing this therapy with this lady, and she's like, I want to try EMDR therapy with you. And I was like, okay. So for 3 months, she prepared me for that therapy because it's really intense, right? It's like they kind of hypnotize you. They take you back to a moment that was traumatizing and they replace it with a good memory. So I prepared myself for that therapy. And while I'm getting ready to do this, I start seeing the guy I'm married to now. We start dating, and he kind of like got involved, and he was a positive person in my life. He actually, CPS people loved him. He didn't do drugs. He was not that kind of person. He was not gang affiliated. He didn't drink. He grew up in a normal life, opposite of what I did. So he was really supportive, and he would take me to meetings. He would go to meetings with me. He would take me to groups. He would make sure I was doing everything that I had to get my kids back. But even with him, I experienced some stuff that threw him off. The first time that I spent the night at his house, well, not the first time. So while I was staying at his house, I only stayed at his house for 2 weeks because he was like, the sober living is not for you. Come stay with me at my mom's and I'll help you, you know, until you get your apartment. So I was like, all right, I guess, you know, we were not even boyfriend and girlfriend yet, but I agreed. The first week that I stayed at his mom's house, I saw his sister who had passed away. Only I didn't know she passed away. I just saw her standing in the hallway one night when I went to go use the bathroom. He didn't tell me that she had passed away or that he had a sister that had passed. He and I got into an argument. He's like, "Oh, you're probably using again or something." And I was like, "No, there was a woman standing there. Are you cheating on me? Is there another woman?" I even hit up his best friend. I was like, I don't think he's gonna be for me because I saw somebody there." He's like, "No, Naniece, it's not like that. You should talk to him." And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to, but I saw somebody there and he's making it seem like I'm delusional." And so that was the first thing that I saw. Second thing that I saw was, well, a couple of times incidents while I'm in his room. I start getting these visions of stuff that happened because he grew up in that house. And I started having like these flashbacks, and it was like a movie to me of things that were happening in that house to him when he was a child, involving his sister, involving his dad, and his mom being aware of it. I was like, why am I seeing these things? Like, let me shake it off. This is a healthy guy. This is my healthy guy. I don't want to believe these things are real. And then 2 nights later, I'm laying down with him and I looked him in his eyes. And that was my biggest mistake. I don't like making eye contact with people because when I do, I see stuff. Kind of like in the movie Ghost Rider, when he looks into people's souls and he sees what they do and then he takes their life. Kind of like that. That specific night, I looked into his eyes and I saw some horrific things that happened. And
Wow.
I backed off and I told him, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. And he's like, why? And I was like, I need to leave right now. And so he was tripping on me. He was thinking I was using. I couldn't tell him what I saw because I wasn't sure if it was real or not. So he helped me pack my stuff and I left. I was staying in a hotel for a while and then I got my apartment and then I finally invited him over and I was like, I need to talk to you about something. And he's like, what? I was like, there's some stuff that I saw that I wanted to, talk to you about. And so one of those things that I told him I saw was, I was like, do you have like an addiction to porn? And he was like, he just looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I was like, look, that last time that I was with you in your room, I looked into your eyes and I saw everything that you were doing in this room. You were masturbating, you were watching this kind of porn, you were watching that kind of porn. And he's like, well, check this out. He was a little embarrassed and he was like, I did have a porn addiction, but I just recently quit cold turkey, which is why he wasn't trying to have sex with me. He did not have sex with me for a while because he was like, I'm trying to not have that kind of temptation or urges. So I kind of freaked out a little bit because I was like, why did I have those visions of you, I hadn't spoke to him about the stuff that I saw of his sister and his dad and his mom until recently, like 3 weeks ago. I had the courage to ask him these questions because these visions, every time I go to his mom's house, I get this really nasty feeling being around his mom and his sister. And I remember those visions that I had of what had happened to him. So I spoke to my therapist about it about a month ago, and she's like, I encourage you to talk to him about it to see where it goes. And I was like, okay. So then I asked him, I was like, hey, I know we're in a better place now. And you obviously know I'm talking about my experiences. There's something I want to talk to you about that I saw back in 2020 when we were first dating. He's like, all right, tell me. So, and then I told him, I was like, I saw, I started asking him questions. I was like, he told me it was okay to share this because I know he's going to share this with people that are going to see this. So, I saw stuff that was happening to him when he was little, involving it happening where there was water, like maybe in the shower. And he was like, yeah, I remember certain events. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I remember there was water around. And I was like kind of heartbroken because I kind of didn't want, I was hoping that what I saw wasn't real. And then I told him there's some stuff too that happened between you and your older sister. And he was like, there's no way you could have known that because I never told you. And I was like, well, there's things that you've shared with me about your sister that's not normal. Because he shared with me a story about his sister being a stripper. She's like 7 years older than him, and how she used to dance in front of him, or how she would do stuff with her boyfriends while he was next to them. So I'm like, that's not normal, And he would always say, no, you're just saying that because of the traumas that you experienced. I'm like, possibly, but that's also not normal, like you were being groomed by your sister. And I was like, how old were you? And he told me the age he was, and I was like, that's not right. She's 7 years older than you. And he would say that he was like blackout drunk and he couldn't like, I feel like he was justifying it because he still hasn't came to the terms of what I don't think he has, yet. He has yet to accept what has happened, because he told me, he's like, well, now that you know, why don't you go talk to my mom and sister and let them know that you know? And I was like, no, it's not my story to tell. And maybe you should be the one confronting them, like that's weird. Um, but I feel like sometimes the reason that I'm being able to give the gift of having visions is to understand people and help them because I've gone through these things, right? Um, so another incident where I've actually helped, my visions have actually helped was not too long ago. I had an uncle who went missing, and I remember this one night I saw a blue orb before I fell asleep, and then I had a dream about him. In my dream, he was in a hospital. There was 6 beds, and the walls were yellow, and there was a clock ticking a certain time. I don't remember what time it was, but he was bleeding, and he had a lot of blood on the left side of his head. And I was like, "Hey, they're looking for you. Where are you?" And then he just kept pointing at the clock, and he kept showing me the wall. And I was like, "Okay, you're clearly at a hospital." And then he was like saying goodbye to me, and then saw a light, like a bright light, and he walked away, and the bright light woke me up, and it was morning. So I remember when I woke up, I texted my brother, and I was like, "Hey, I had a dream about our uncle that he was missing, and he's at a hospital." And he's like, "You need to tell his sister." And she's in Mexico. So I'm like, what if she thinks I'm crazy? You know, those people think I'm crazy already. He's like, "Just tell her." So I was like, okay. And so I sent her a message on Messenger, and I asked her, "Have you guys checked your local hospitals?" I had a dream that I'm like, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I had a dream that he was at a hospital, and there was yellow walls, and there was 6 beds in that room. And she's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go look at the hospitals right now. I'll get back to you." I said, okay. So I went to go take a shower, and then I come back and I check my messenger. She had messaged me, and she's like, "We found him." I was like, "Oh, that's great. Where is he?" And she's like, "We found him in the morgue. The walls were yellow, and there were 6 beds." And I was like, "Okay, all right." And then I was like, "All right, so I don't want to intrigue, but when you guys find out his cause of death, can you let me know?" And she's like, "Why?" And I told her, "When my dream, he was bleeding, and he had a lot of blood on the left side of his head, like there was blunt force trauma to his head." And she's like, "Okay." So 2 weeks later, she reaches out to me, and sure enough, she says that the cause of death was the blunt force trauma to the head. He had been jumped, and he was murdered. Like the blow to the head was what killed him instantly. So I was like, well, that's cool. So after that, I started to realize that the gifts that I'm given to be able to see things, it's to help people. Right now I currently work with the reentry population. So I work with inmates while they're in custody, and we get them out, and we reintegrate them to the community. So I have that gift where I can connect with these people and help them. I see, like, even though like what it is that they've done, I see their spirit. I don't see your physical being. I see your spirit, and I know what God's trying to help you with. And that's what gift was given to me, because the crazy thing about me is that despite all the people who have hurt me in my life, I give people grace. When my cousin did what he did to me, I could have woken somebody up. I could have grabbed a knife and stabbed him. I could have done anything. The moment that I saw him praying, I went over there and I gave him grace, and I, I was comforting him. My father, who did what he did to me, I gave him grace. My mother, who beat me all the time and said the most horrific things to me, I gave her grace. My uncle, who did what he did to me, I gave him grace. I give even the guy who killed me and I had to be brought back to life, I gave him grace too. You know what I mean? Like, I hate that about myself sometimes, because I feel like I don't deserve a lot of the stuff that has happened to me, but it's kind of like God gave up his own son to sacrifice him to bring us close to him, right? We can't get to God without Jesus. And the only way we get to go through that is when we go through all these things, because that's when we need God the most. That's when we look for him, is when we're going through all these tough situations. I could have died many years ago when all these things happened to me. 12 years old, being trafficked, 12 years old, doing drugs, like many incidents where I sometimes don't believe, like, how am I here? And I know it's because of God. I know it's because Jesus is the one that saved me. When I saw that angel, like, I knew that since a young age that I was chosen and that I was different. And then I didn't know what to do with my gifts, because I was blocking him off from all the drug use, all the alcohol, all the negative people. But, when I tapped back into my faith, when I met the program 2911, I started going to church again, and I started connecting with church, right? But then just last year on Halloween, my husband's cousin, she came over, and she was like, because she noticed all the decorations that I have. My son was born on Halloween, so I go all out for Halloween. And she noticed the decorations, and her mom, she started praying. She got up and she was going to each of my rooms in my house, and she was praying, like hard praying. And I was like, okay, there's something in my heart was like, maybe we need this. And this cousin told me, she's like, God doesn't want you to go to church. God just wants to build a relationship with you. Start with that. Build a relationship with Jesus. And when she said that, something in my heart was like, felt free. And I was like, I finally get it. The day after, when she left, I got rid of a lot of my decorations, because a lot of them were demonic, and I felt good about that, because I also had the Grim Reaper decoration that was given to me. I had it in my altar where I have pictures of the people who have passed away. I got rid of that one, and that one for me, I did never wanted to get rid of it. So after his cousin said that, I got rid of a lot of like bad stuff, and I started building a relationship with Jesus. I was freed from a lot of stuff because I was a very reactional person. And on top of that, when I did the EMDR therapy, I also did acid. I did LSD with the therapy. And during my second therapy session that I had, I I remember I prayed, and then I didn't see God, I felt God. I was in this place. It was red. There was mountains all around. It kind of looked like the upside down. There was nobody there but me and the presence of God. And this time I felt God right there. Not like those times where I was dying and he was nowhere, like he was far away. God was right there. And I asked God. And at this point, I still to this day don't know much about scripture. I'm still barely learning how to read the Bible. When I asked God, I said, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" God's voice said to me, "I am who I am." And I was like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, I don't know. Who are you? Like, what does that mean? And I heard the voice again say, "I am who I am." And then I came to. Ever since that day, I felt so enlightened. I didn't even understand why. I was like, okay, he is who he is, but why am I feeling so happy? I feel so blessed. I feel so grateful. I'm always like, I was like, I got to start praying. I don't have to just pray when I need something. I got to pray when I'm grateful for. Every morning I pray for grateful for everything. I pray for my children. I pray for my finances, for my education, everything. I pray for my husband. I pray for his parents because his parents don't like me. I pray for his dad because his dad to this day practices witchcraft, and he worships the Buddha. I pray for his mom who stole my dog. Like, I pray for people even when I know that they don't like me. Like, I felt so enlightened after I had that conversation and God said that to me. To this day, I don't know what that means, but somebody told me that that's actually in scripture in the Bible. And I was like, at some point I'm going to learn about it and I'm going to understand why I heard that in my trip, you know? But I haven't been using, I got clean 2021 in August, when my grandfather passed away. I remember that when I found out he was dying, I had a small relapse. And when I went to go see him, I was like, I can't do this to myself. I can't do this to my grandfather. I have to go through this because if I don't, I'm going to go down the same path I did when my uncle died. So August 13th was my clean date. I'm going to go to 5 years being sober now, off of alcohol, off of meth, off of any drug. So I'm in recovery. I remember I just had my wedding. We've been married for almost 5 years now, but we just had our wedding last year. It was a non-alcoholic wedding, which was awesome. The people that support us, who actually care and love us and support everything, were there, and they didn't care that there wasn't any alcohol. Um, so now, like, moving forward, like, I just got my first 2 degrees in psychology and behavioral science. I'm remarried. I had 2 more babies with my now husband. I still speak for the organization 2911. I speak about what that program did to me and how it helped save me and bring me back to Jesus. I started just recently speaking on podcasts. I'm not exactly sure how or why. I never thought it was going to go anywhere, but you guys are actually the seventh people that I have interviewed. I had one yesterday. I had one, like, these past weekends have been all, and I'm like, God, and I pray before I came here with you guys, and I was like, allow the Holy Spirit to take over and let me share my story, because there has to the awareness that people are not alone. Like, it's not normal, like, it's normalized, like the incest and stuff that happens in families when you're young, like a lot of religious confusion. There's a lot of people who don't speak up, who don't know what's happening or whatever. And I want to be a voice that shares my story, that what I've gone through, and how I'm here. Like, I have struggled. Like I said, I've struggled physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally, abused my whole life, by my 2 parents, my parents that were supposed to love me. I'm a mom. Like, I could never imagine hurting my children on purpose or even an accident. You know what I mean? Like, I can never come to terms of why my parents did that. They hurt me before anybody else could, you know? And the men that I thought that I could trust, they hurt me too, you know? I had to learn to love myself. I had to learn to love myself and to let God love me. Like I always tell people, like no matter what, God was always there with his hands open waiting for me. Like I've been here this whole time. You just keep being stubborn. You want to try doing it things your way. And when I finally surrendered and I said I can't do this without you, Jesus, my life turned around because I was always like tiptoeing, like half a foot in, half a foot out. And with that, I continued to struggle. But when I surrendered and I gave myself to Jesus and I found a relationship with Jesus, my
Yeah.
life turned around. And I'm not saying my life is perfect because I still struggle with a lot of
I don't.
stuff. There's gonna always
Yeah.
be spiritual warfare. Like
I don't
just
think anyone's
yesterday
life.
after I did the podcast, I got a fever and I was like, I started hearing like
Yeah.
a ringing in my ear really bad. And I told my husband at some point I was gonna like tap out when I was talking about certain things. And
Yeah.
he's like, that's the enemy. That's enemies trying to silence you. And I was like, you're right. Because the
Yeah.
first podcast that reached out to me and said she wanted to interview me, when I got that email, I got hit by a palm tree branch in my
Hmm.
arm.
Hmm.
I was at work when this happened and I had to go to the urgent care. And my husband's like, what? That happened to you? As I
It's
was
weird,
opening up
man.
the email, this
Yeah.
happened to me. So he's like, the enemy's trying to silence you, but God wants you to speak up. God wants you to
Yeah. Speak up. Give your testimony.
exactly.
Just really
But
quick, when you were discussing those little entities, those gnomes,
yeah,
there's a movie. There's a movie. It's kind of old now. It's by Stephen King. It's called The Cat's Eye,
cat's eye. Okay.
and it's the same thing. A same creature that comes and gets on your chest and tries to pull your soul out of you.
Okay. I'm
And
gonna write that down. Cat's eye.
the other thing is when you're talking about blood, and we got like about 10 minutes left here. When we talk about blood,
Yeah.
the reason why people, occultists or they say celebrities, whatever, the reason why they get blood from younger people is because it has more copper in it, and it keeps
Mm,
you younger and more vitality. And when you eat the organs from an occultic point of view, it's like you're taking their energy, their power, and sometimes whatever they have and within them, you absorb their abilities. And there's so many different things about the occult, and I don't want to get read into it more because it is evil and it can influence you. And but what you've been through is I mean, you're a living testimony that there's hope. And I give you a lot of praise and accolades because you went through a lot, and here
yeah.
you are. um Now, have you been born again?
So I just had this conversation with one of the people at church. I was like, I'm waiting. I want to do it on the fifth on my 5th year of recovery. I was like thinking that I had to wait until I'm like completely good mentally and
When
all
you're
that.
ready. Yeah,
And
when you're
something
ready.
that they told me was the power of gospel was never dependent on perfect people. They're like,
Yeah.
give yourself to the Lord, you're ready. And so my 12-year-old son also wants to get baptized. So I'm like trying to make time for it to happen, you know? So I'm working on it.
Yeah, something along your family line, which you're probably not aware of. There's some kind of generational sin with your parents and probably their parents and back and back and back.
Yeah.
But it's your time to break it now,
Yeah.
to not repeat that cycle. And of course, you're going to get demonic attacks, demonic influences. You're going to get, they're going to attack because they want that family lineage back. Now, I know it's real because when my former, when her mom passed away, there was a big demon outside. I can hear it walking on the patio. It was really heavy. It was really big, making snorting sounds. Lionel was there, making snorting sounds, and the door was rattling. Boom, 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 boom. And her and I are not together anymore. And it's you see the obvious that there's something in dwelt in people, demonic forces, and you can sense it. I mean, when you're born again, I was born again a long time ago, but like you sense stuff when stuff is bad, or you're in a situation, you feel this feeling of dread, and it's time to leave, time to get out.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff when you get born again. You get that extra warning, the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit moving in you. And so I mean, it's totally up to the person when they're ready.
Yeah.
Not anyone to like force you to, oh, you got to do it right now. It's when you're ready. And people say, do you have to get baptized in water? Well, that's a little thing that I think about because in the Bible it says if you believe that he was crucified and he was killed and he was resurrected by the Father, if you truly believe that, then you are saved. So that tells me that if you truly believe that, you're saved already, even though you're not born again in water. Jesus was born in water as a message that he's washing away the sins for us. It was like a, a, a symbolism, a symbol to this is what he's doing for mankind.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me personally, I mean, I would do both. I would still do the water baptism, and always have in your heart that you truly believe that he was resurrected.
Yeah.
And it says in the Bible, when you start getting into it, you'll find it. I think might be in Romans, I believe. I could be wrong, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. And I mean, all the stuff you went through, the stuff you seen, you saw that angel. Now, just really quick, so we're running out of time. This angel, you said it had a bunch of eyes on it.
Yeah, and there was like flames around it, and it had like the color of it was just like not a color you can describe from this reality.
Did it have any wings
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. So the wings were like spread out like this, kind of like this,
yeah?
and a bunch of eyes. And I see
Wow.
them like I see like a bunch of angels. Like I even taken pictures and I even posted on my Instagram. Like, do you guys see the eye up there?
You got yeah, you got to you got to show us those pictures, man. I like to see them. I really would like to see
Yeah.
them. But anything else as you wrap up here? Do you have any sites you want people to go look at? If it's your Instagram or you
Well,
know,
I can share my link onto the email. I could attach my link. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Right now my TikTok is mostly just fitness. But
okay.
you know, yeah, you
What's the
know,
name of it? Can you say the name of your social medias if you can, so we could get the audience?
let me see. I don't want it to like, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so my Instagram is
I can hear you. Can I hear you? Hello? You kind of bugged out.
No, I can't hear. Lost you.
That's funny. She just said if we could hear us, and then she just,
Yeah.
what happened? What the heck?
I don't know.
Interesting.
We might as
Interesting.
well just
can you hear
we
me
might as
now?
well,
Yeah, now I can. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
just
Yeah,
head out.
because if I open up another page, so I know that
Oh,
the Instagram is wifey Gonzalez, like wifey
Wifey?
underscore Gonzalez,
Mm,
and I think Facebook is connected to that one.
okay, I found you right there. Okay, cool. I'll definitely tag that on the page. Dominic, you have anything last words to say? Anything? Get the wifey one.
no,
Cool, got
just
it.
be strong. I mean, you're a strong
Wild
lady.
testimony. Wild.
You've been to so much. I mean, we've had stories, but yours is the most intense.
Yeah, you got to listen to
And
Greg. I'll send you a link when we
yeah,
hang up here. But
Greg
he
and his
has a
brother, what
similar
they went
story.
through, man. We had other stories about portals and black holes and just a lot of crazy stuff. But this is a testimony for people to could listen to because some people out there may be going through the same thing that you and
Yeah.
Greg went through and his brother. And it's unfortunate, why do things happen like this? People say, well, why does God let things happen like this to people? Well, because he's giving other people free will.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take away the free will, then it'd be a perfect world.
Yeah.
He'd be a controlling God. So he gave us the free will to do good things and do things that are atrocities. And it's sad, but I don't fully understand him, and I probably never will. Why the things he does it does, but that's his glory. I am who I am. It's where did God come from? I am. There's
Yeah.
there's no thinking about where he came from. He just is. And I really appreciate your testimony, and we'll stay in touch, me and Lionel, and hopefully you let us know how you're doing, and
Yeah.
kind of keep us up to date. It was really good having you on. And I'll let you talk. I didn't want to interrupt. Just get you whatever you want to get out there to our listeners. Thank you.
Well, thanks
Thank
for
you very
having
much.
me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm going to close this out here because the timer's going to end, but we could talk to you once we end the recording. All right,
Okay.
guys. Thank you everybody for listening. I really appreciate it. This is going to be out probably like in 2 weeks or less. Um, I'm going to put the whole image out there. What's it called when you promote the thumbnail? That will be out probably by tomorrow. And then I'm going to leave all the links for Naniece right here so you can get a hold of her, because I know a lot of you people went through this and you guys are like not ready to tell your testimony. And I'm not trying to say that someone is worse than the others, but from what we just heard, I mean, there's no way that you guys don't have a similar story that you can't relate to, because this is like, I don't know how much, what you went through is horrible. Like, you found God, but like, how much worse can it get, So, God bless you for coming on the show. This is a wild testimony. I'm telling you, I'm gonna send you the winner, Greg, and when Greg listens to this, he's probably gonna want to. You two should do a podcast together. That would be great, but that would be another story for another time. Let me just end this recording really quick. So I'm your host, Lionel Tavares from the Sabbath at Midnight. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It is good night, good morning, good evening, whatever the case may be, to all my listeners around the world, and I will see you guys very soon. Let me end this really quick.
Finally, I feel alive, and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul, and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ, and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. That's right, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Even if I know it'll be making them hostile. Thinking about the persecution of apostles. They wanna see his people in the dirt with the fossils. You may be thinking that might sound extreme, but you gotta ask yourself, is this life what it seems? People suffering for Christ in this world full of schemes and agendas. Would you give your life for the king? Give it up. Martyrdom, yeah, that really is a thing. Better look it up if you don't believe, you know what I mean? We gotta try our hardest not to be so naive, and be mindful of the children and people that bleed for the name of Christ. The only one that can save your life. He saved mine never once, gotta thank him twice. The amount of 1,000 thanks in a day, knowing I gotta give him more praise when I pray. Finally, I feel alive, and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul, and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ, and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. Can't be content with just church on Sunday, or just going through the motions, cause one day I'ma have to give account for my time spent, and where my empty words and all of that pride went. Calamity bringing clarity. Seems like a good church these days is a rarity. 1 out of 7 in the book of Revelation. A perverse generation on the verge of devastation. A sign of the times, realizing that I'm in danger if I don't put my mind to the grind and do a work for the Lord. Every verse is a sword. Overseas there is people getting murked for the Lord. Imagining the whole church in the court, death itself shortly after rebirth in the Lord. Rapping for Christ like I wanna be his hype man, and I know opportunities have a lifespan. Finally I feel alive, and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul, and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ, and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed.
The idea is trusting in God even when it doesn't make sense. In 2 Timothy 1 verse 12, this is why I am suffering as I am, yet I am not ashamed, because I know whom I have believed. I am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him for that day. I am not ashamed, he says. I'm not ashamed to trust God